I have a system that helps me survive in a zombie apocalypse. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 151 Hard High-Speed Rail Zombie. QIU Zillion patted QIU Zillion on the back and then said softly, "Zillion, be good. Let's go down and help Grandpa get revenge now, okay?" QIU Zillion looked up and asked, "Then, after revenge, will Grandpa come back?" QIU Zillion opened her mouth, not knowing how to answer. He stepped forward. "He will come back. Grandpa will always be with Zillion and watch Zillion grow up." QIU Zillion pulled QIU Zillion's clothes. "Sister, is it true?" QIU Zillion glanced at him, then nodded. QIU Zillion hurriedly said, "Then let's go and get revenge for Grandpa now." He and Wan Kyushu walked to a hidden corner. After a moment, Wan Kyushu, who had transformed, came out with him. A pair of red eyes were particularly conspicuous in the rain. QIU Zillion glanced at the two of them, but didn't ask much. He took out a mask and distributed it to everyone. "Put this on everyone." In addition to the stench of the level 3 zombies, there was also the smell of the rotting bodies of the zombies who died in there before. It would definitely be unbearable without a mask. After everyone put on their masks, Wan Kyushu sent them down one by one. For safety reasons, they were all covered with invisible cloth. After the four of them gathered together, they walked into the restaurant. At this time, QIU Zillion looked at him. "Give me the knife. I'm going to kill the big fish." He shook his head. "Kill the high-speed rail zombie first." QIU Zillion repeated, "Give me the knife." Wan Kyushu took the soul-breaking knife directly from him. "The knife is mine. Why should I give it to you?" QIU Zillion glared at her and didn't say anything. Wan Kyushu looked at him. "How about, which one should I kill first?" He pointed at the high-speed rail zombie. "Kill him first, and if you give him time, he will recover. The big fish has no water. Even if it doesn't die, it has no strength to resist." Wan Kyushu nodded, switched the soul-breaking knife to the hammer of the earth, but did not approach the high-speed rail zombie. She didn't want to be counterattacked. After all, she didn't have the tenacious vitality of these level 3 zombies. In such a short time, the black liquid no longer flowed out of the broken part of the high-speed rail zombie, but granulation began to grow. "I believe that, as long as he is given a little more time, it will not be a problem to grow the lower body. The price is that not only his body has shrunk, but he only has a pair of arms, and he looks like a little old man. The main reason is that his face is dehydrated, wrinkled, and old." Although the high-speed rail zombie did not feel any breath, he could see the watermarks on the invisible cloth when they came in. So at this time, he used all his energy to try to get the lower body out, otherwise he would be dead. Wan Kyushu naturally would not give him such an opportunity. He stretched out his arm and swung the hammer of the earth to knock it down. The high-speed rail zombie seemed to have not seen the hammer of the earth at all, and did not even have defense. With a bang, the hammer of the earth hit the head of the high-speed rail zombie, and it was dented. The high-speed rail zombie was immediately confused. What was going on? He didn't even see the other party, so why was his head hit, and it was dented? While he was thinking, another hammer suddenly fell, denting his nose. This time he didn't care about so much, and a silver metallic luster appeared on his head, waiting for the other party to attack. Wan Kyushu couldn't help but feel strange. Can't he see me? Why didn't he resist or defend just now? He thought about it. It should be the effect of the invisibility cloth. You are covered with an invisibility cloth. Even if you stretch your arms, the high-speed rail zombie can't see it. Wan Kyushu laughed. Then he's done. The hammer of the earth fell, but this time it did not cause any damage to the high-speed rail zombie. Instead, it made a dang sound, as if it was ringing a bell. Wan Kyushu frowned. "What's going on?" He replied, "Didn't you see the metallic luster on his head? He just used it to resist the fins of the big fish." Wan Kyushu said, "Oh," and dropped another hammer. This hammer fell on the body without metallic luster, and it was indeed dented a little. The high-speed rail zombie turned his head and looked around, but did not find any trace of the enemy. There was no other way, so he had to spread the metallic luster all over his body. Wang Qiushu looked at the high-speed train zombie, then looked back at him. What should we do now? He thought for a moment. How about we just waste time here? Wang Qiushu asked curiously. Will it work? He nodded. When he was fighting the big fish just now, he only used this metallic luster when he was about to be chopped, so this body hardening should be a big drain on him. Otherwise, if it is always on, he will be invulnerable. Why turn it on and off? It is not only troublesome but also distracting. So, we just have to waste time with him. Wang Qiushu looked at the high-speed train zombie after hearing this. Sure enough, the recovery speed of the high-speed train zombie's lower body almost stagnated at this time, and there was no sign of recovery at all. Wang Qiushu was immediately amused. Tell me, if we keep on wasting like this, will his energy be used up, and then he will become smaller and smaller, or even die? He replied, it's possible, but why didn't you use the soul-breaking knife just now? Wang Qiushu replied, it's more comfortable to use a hammer to deal with such a hard zombie. I want to smash him flat like forging iron. If I use a knife, every time I cut it, I will be hit back, and the feel is too bad. He nodded in agreement. The high-speed rail zombie was about to cry at this time. If he used hardening, he would not be able to recover his body, and he couldn't even escape. If he didn't use hardening, he could only be hammered. After a while, the high-speed rail zombie quietly cancelled the hardening. He waited for a while, and he didn't get hammered, so he felt relieved to mobilize energy to recover his body. Wang Qiushu laughed, and smashed it with another hammer, knocking the high-speed rail zombie dizzy. The high-speed rail zombie immediately gave up and directly turned on the whole body hardening, as if he was ready to continue to consume. At this time, Qiushu came over. Since we can't kill him in a short time, let me get rid of the big fish first. Wang Qiushu looked at him. What Qiushu said was a solution. Anyway, this high-speed rail zombie couldn't escape. He thought about it. Do you want any skills of this high-speed rail zombie? Wang Qiushu pondered for a moment. Growing bigger, growing arms, regenerating broken limbs, and hardening. Only hardening is useful, the others are useless to me. However, this hardening is a bit useless, so forget it. He nodded. Okay, then, I'll deal with him. Wang Qiushu was surprised. You? I can't do it, can you? He smiled. Of course, mountain people have their own tricks. Wang Qiushu asked curiously, what are you going to do? He took out the zombie juicer. Just use this. Chapter 152. Going to the underworld together. Wang Qiushu looked at the juicer. Will this work? I've only juiced corpses before. This is the first time I've juiced a living one. Not to mention this is a level 3 zombie. He shook his head. Anyway, the instructions only say to put a zombie in, so a living one should work. Besides, if it breaks, I'll just lose a juicer. It's not a big deal. Wang Qiushu nodded. Okay then. He put the juicer on the ground, then it grew bigger, and then opened the lid. The high-speed rail zombie was still hardened all over at this time, and only heard the sound of the juicer falling to the ground, but didn't see what happened. Then, he suddenly felt himself flying. When he stopped, he found himself in a sealed container. He propped himself up with his hands, but found that the lid on top of his head couldn't be opened. He clenched his fists and knocked on the transparent glass, but it didn't work, no matter how hard he knocked. Wang Qiushu looked at the high-speed train zombie in the juicer. Why does it look like it's looking at a specimen? Moreover, only the upper body is left, the lower body is gone. It's a bit scary. He nodded. Indeed. Let's start it. Success or failure depends on this one move. After saying that, he pressed the switch. The high-speed train zombie started to turn inside, knocking on the glass of the juicer frantically, and making bursts of ho-ho sounds. Then, the sound gradually weakened until it disappeared. When the juicer stopped, there was no trace of the high-speed train zombie inside, only a black object lying in the middle. Wang Qiushu looked at him in surprise. I didn't expect it to work. If I had known, I wouldn't have gone through so much trouble. We can put the zombie virus directly into the juicer, so that after the level 3 zombie goes in, we can close the lid and kill him, right? He looked at Wang Qiushu speechlessly. Is it your brain that is bad, or the zombie's brain? Since everyone knows that the zombie virus is in it, why can't you reach in and take it out? Why do you have to crawl in? Wan Kyushu slapped his forehead. Yeah, why didn't I think of this? Then we can stuff it in while he's taking it. He didn't want to talk anymore. The big fish was lying on the ground without making any noise. But when it saw the high-speed rail zombie being stuffed into a container that suddenly appeared, it started to turn around inside, and the container also made bursts of booming sounds. Not long after the high-speed rail zombie's breath disappeared, it was so scared that it climbed up again and crawled out the door with difficulty. At this time, Kyuuzalin, who had been standing next to it for a long time, kicked the fish on the gills. Although the force was not enough to kick the big fish away, it still kicked the big fish sideways. Hearing the noise, both of them looked over. Wan Kyushu looked at the juicer, then at the big fish. How about using the juicer to deal with it? He shook his head. Since we agreed to let her take revenge, let her do it. Wan Kyushu asked again, but if she is not an auxiliary, even if she kills the big fish, she can't get the big fish's skills. He sighed. Forget it, it's just skills. Since I promised her, I can't break my promise. In fact, in addition to skills, there is also experience, a full 1000 experience points. Wan Kyushu nodded. Okay. Then, she walked over, separated the long-handled soul-breaking knife, and handed it to Kyuuzalin. Considering the size of the big fish, it is safer to use the long-handled soul-breaking knife. After Kyuuzalin took the soul-breaking knife, she directly lifted the invisible cloth, exposing her entire body to the big fish. The big fish finally turned over, only to see Kyuuzalin standing in front of it. It remembered what happened before, and the reason why it became like this was all caused by the woman in front of it. So, it rushed directly towards Kyuuzalin, and its fins were slightly raised, ready to swing at any time. However, its condition was obviously not as good as before. Even when rushing forward, it was much slower than before. Kyuuzalin saw the big fish rushing over, and quickly jumped to the side. At the same time, the soul-breaking sword swung out, and cut the big fish, leaving a deep scratch. Although the big fish was injured, the scratch was still oozing black liquid, but it did not stop, and did not turn back to attack Kyuuzalin. Instead, it used the speed of rushing forward, to crawl out of the door. It seemed that it still did not want to die here. There was no movement just now, probably because it was worried about being obstructed by the high-speed rail zombies. However, just as it crawled to the door, the big fish's head was suddenly hit hard, and the whole fish flew back. Wan Kyushu took back the hammer of the earth. Sorry, this road is blocked. The big fish quickly climbed up again, but it didn't understand what had just happened. It only knew that there was no way to go to the gate, so it had to think of another way. At this time, Kyuuzalin rushed over again, and slashed it with a knife. It was annoyed by Kyuuzalin, so it simply swung its fins to cut Kyuuzalin, and at the same time, the aura on its body pressed towards Kyuuzalin. Kyuuzalin's body trembled slightly, and the big fish's aura was not as fierce as before. She gritted her teeth, and chopped at the fish fins with the soul-breaking sword. With a tear, the fish fins were directly cut off. However, this is normal, because the fish fins are only sharp at the edges. The fish fins themselves are not hard, let alone facing a sharp weapon like the soul-breaking sword. The big fish only felt a pain, and when he saw that one side of his fins was gone, he quickly ran to the side. I didn't expect this woman's aura to be so weak, but her lethality was so strong. Kyuuzalin chased after it directly. When she saw the hole on the fish's body that was gnawed by the high-speed train zombies, she went in without thinking. The fish didn't notice, and was still running wildly. Wan Kyushu looked at him. Is this really okay? Will it be digested directly in there? He shook his head. It should be okay. She is protected by the martial arts uniform, and I believe she knows what's going on. After a while, the big fish suddenly stopped, and began to roll on the spot. Then, you can see scratches on its body, from the inside to the outside, and sometimes you can see the tip of the knife. Needless to say, this must be the soul-breaking knife. After a while, a crack suddenly appeared on the fish's head, and then the crack became larger and larger until it split the fish's head in half. It was not until this time that the big fish was completely dead and no longer moved. Kyuuzalin climbed out of the fish's head with the soul-breaking knife, and then opened the fish's mouth to check it. Then, she returned the soul-breaking knife to Wang Qiushu with an expressionless face. After he used a scan to confirm that the big fish was dead, he walked over to observe it and thought about how to start. The fish was too big to fit into the juicer without cutting it up. Chapter 153 Cruel. Wang Qiushu walked up to him. How do we deal with this body now? He cancelled Wang Qiushu's transformation, took out disposable gloves, and put them on. Of course, we have to dismember it. After all, it is the body of a level 3 zombie, and we can't waste it. When all the viruses are combined, it is estimated that even level 5 zombies may be attracted here, which will be exciting. Wang Qiushu nodded, and then stood aside. Qiu Zillion, wearing a mask that was a bit too big, suddenly rushed to his side. Are you going to kill the fish? He nodded. Qiu Zillion asked again, will Grandpa be back soon? He was silent, and then looked at Qiu Zillion. No wonder Qiu Zillion had to risk her life to rush in just now, but since she came out empty-handed, it was obvious that the body was gone, probably digested by the big fish. Qiu Zillion walked up expressionlessly, picked up Qiu Zillion, but didn't know what to say. The air in the field suddenly solidified. After a while, Qiu Zillion's tears slid down her cheeks, and she closed her eyes in pain. Grandpa is dead, and will not come back. Qiu Zillion struggled hard. I don't believe it. You are lying. You are lying. Grandpa was just eaten by the fish. As long as you rescue Grandpa, everything will be fine. Qiu Zillion shook her head repeatedly. I just checked. There is no Grandpa in it. Qiu Zillion didn't listen, broke free directly, fell to the ground, and then rushed to the big fish. Just as she was about to rush into the belly of the big fish, she was hugged by a pair of gloved hands. He sighed. You wait by the side. I will cut the big fish into pieces, and then you will know whether your grandpa is in it. Qiu Zillion looked at him and nodded after a long time. He put Qiu Zillion down, took the soul-breaking knife and started cutting. The body of the big fish is not hard, otherwise it would not be bitten by the high-speed rail zombies. Only the bones inside are a little harder, especially the skull. As long as the bones are avoided, it is still easy to cut. Soon, the ground was full of pieces of meat, and there was a huge fish skeleton in the middle. Qiu Zillion looked here and there, and suddenly burst into tears. No, no, I want my grandpa, I want my grandpa. Wang Qiushu felt guilty. If it weren't for them, Qiu Zillion's grandpa wouldn't have died, let alone his body. At this time, Qiu Zillion suddenly rushed forward and punched him in the face. This punch is for my grandpa. He didn't have any protective gear, let alone defense, not to mention Qiu Zillion had kung fu, so he was hit by this punch and fell to the ground, with blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. Qiu Zillion continued, you must have said something to my grandpa, otherwise he wouldn't have suddenly appeared. So, it was you who killed my grandpa. Qiu Zillion looked at the three of them and cried even louder. Then, Qiu Zillion took another step forward and prepared to take action. This punch is for those who turned into zombies. Suddenly, a sledgehammer came down. If Qiu Zillion didn't stop, she might get hurt. She had no choice but to step back. Wang Qiushu stood in front of him. If you do it again, I'll be angry. Don't think you're great just because you know kung fu. I'm a level 3 zombie now. I can easily beat you up when I transform into a zombie. Although she didn't know whether she had become a level 3 zombie now, even if she was a level 2, Qiu Zillion was not her opponent. Qiu Zillion glared at Wang Qiushu. This is a matter between me and him. It has nothing to do with you. If you insist on stopping me, don't blame me for being rude. Wang Qiushu snorted coldly, his business is my business, and I also have a part in the matter of looking for your grandfather. Qiu Zillion became even angrier when she heard it, but she didn't rush up rashly. Wang Qiushu was right. She couldn't beat Wang Qiushu who turned into a zombie. Moreover, if something happened to her, what would her sister do? At this time, he also stood up and asked Wang Qiushu to stand aside. I admit the first punch. In a sense, your grandfather did die because of me. If I hadn't informed him, he might have continued to be locked in the room and be a zombie until one day his energy was exhausted and he died. So, if you want to hit me, I won't fight back. QI Zealand snorted coldly and said nothing. He went on, but I don't acknowledge the second punch. I didn't turn those people into zombies. If you want to settle accounts with someone, you should find the masked man or the big fish. Oh, the big fish is dead. QI Zealand glared at him. You guessed it a long time ago, right? That's why you asked me to lure the big fish today. But you didn't say it, and you just watched them turn into zombies. How many lives could have been saved if you had told me in advance? He sneered. Am I familiar with them? Or do I owe them? They obviously died because they were greedy for that little bit of food, but you insisted on blaming me. QI Zealand looked at him. Even if you didn't kill them directly, it was indirectly related to you. What's the difference between you watching them die and killing them? He sighed. Do you still remember what your grandfather said about you? He said you are too soft-hearted and won't live long in this apocalypse. Those people have been relying on you to find food. It can be said that they are alive today thanks to you. But after they found out that you didn't go to find food, they didn't even look at you. They all have umbrellas in their hands, but no one thought of covering you. You still want to save such ungrateful people. QI Zealand didn't know how to refute for a moment. After all, she knew her own feelings. The behavior of those people just now really chilled her. However, she still felt that their life and death should not be decided in this way. What's more, those were lives, and they were gone just like that. He went on to say, do you know what the old lady and the masked man said? If I'm not mistaken, the old lady must have told them that you sent Zillion here. Although she doesn't know the address, she at least knows that you are coming in this direction. If the big fish is not dead, I believe that the masked man will bring the big fish to the door soon. Of course, it's hard to say now. QI Zealand's eyes were full of disbelief, and she took 2 steps back. But she remembered the look in the masked man's eyes at that time, and she suddenly had a feeling in her heart that what he said was right. He asked again, do you still think you should save them now? At this time, QI Zillion suddenly rushed up and hit his thigh. Bad man, give my grandfather back to me. You killed my grandfather. He was silent, and Wang Qiu did not step forward to stop him. Chapter 154 The Big Fish's Body. QI Zealand just felt so tired. She bowed to Li Wending. Thank you for everything you have done for me, including those protective gear and healing medicine. Otherwise I would have died. After a pause, she continued, and let my grandfather help delay time, but that's why I won't forgive you. Zillion, let's go. QI Zillion looked back at her with tears in her eyes. He shook his head. You can go, but Zillion can't. QI Zealand made an offensive gesture. She is my sister. I will take her away, even if I risk my life. He waved his hand. I'm not interested in fighting with you, and I don't want to fight with you. It's just that, when I went to find your grandfather, I told him about our deal. To be honest, I wasn't sure I could keep you alive at that time. Your grandfather naturally understood this, so he told me that, if something happened to you, I must take good care of Zillion. QI Zillion had already run back to QI Zealand at this time, and the two walked out hand in hand. Wang QI looked at him. Do you want to stop them? He continued. Your grandfather knows that I'm still fulfilling the deal with you, so he is sure that I'm a trustworthy person. Since I told him to take good care of Zillion, I will naturally do it. Your kung fu is good, and with that set of protective gear, you may have a certain degree of self-protection ability against zombies. But you don't understand human nature. If you leave now, it won't be long before you die at the hands of others. It doesn't matter if you die, Zillion will die at that time. And I don't know where you will go. Even if I want to save Zillion, I can't do it. QI Zealand suddenly stopped when she heard this. Her heart was full of entanglements, and she suddenly didn't know where to go. Moreover, she knew that Li Wending was right, and she was not able to take good care of her sister. QI Zillion looked at QI Zealand. Sister, aren't we leaving? I don't want to live with that bad guy. QI Zealand did not answer, but turned and looked at him. When are we going to kill the masked man? He sighed. At least we have to wait until the rain stops. It's raining so heavily, I don't want to go out in the rain. QI Zealand frowned. What if the masked man runs away when the rain stops? He sneered. How do you know he hasn't run away now? QI Zealand suddenly didn't know what to say. he explained. The masked man was very alert. When he first saw the big fish's strangeness, he didn't follow. Later, the two of them fought so hard here that, even if it didn't shake the earth, there was still noise. Now there is no sound at all, and everyone can guess that something happened. Therefore, the masked man is very likely to have run away. In fact, if he was more alert, he would have run away when the big fish came. Qi bent down and touched Qi head. You wait here obediently, sister will go to do something. Qi nodded. Qi looked at Wan Qiushu. Give me the knife. Wan Qiushu saw him nod and then handed over the soul-breaking knife. Qi chopped at the skeleton of the big fish, one knife after another, fast, fierce and accurate, as if venting. He shook his head, stuffed the fish meat into the juicer, and then turned on the juicer to start squeezing the juice. The juicer turned wildly, making bursts of roars. After a while, all the fish meat was squeezed out. He looked at the black object in the juicer and frowned. Wan Qiushu asked, "What's wrong?" He replied, "This amount is not right. After squeezing the high-speed rail zombies just now, it was much larger than this. They are both level 3 zombies, so this shouldn't be the case." Wan Qiushu looked around quickly. Could this be another substitute? Could it be that the big fish is hiding outside and waiting for us to get out? He patted Wan Qiushu's forehead. If the big fish was still there, it would have killed us all just now. At this time, Qi suddenly shouted, "Come and see what this is." He and Wan Qiushu walked over and saw a palm-sized tilapia on the left side of the big fish's skull. The fish's eyes were red, but it had no breath and would not move. Its entire body was directly embedded in the bones. Qi said, "When I cut here just now, I suddenly felt that I was blocked by something hard, so I cut the bone next to it and saw it inside." He carefully took out the tilapia. It seems that this is its body, and the viruses should also be inside. But it is quite smart and knows to hide on the left. In this way, even if it is cut in the middle, it will not die. Wan Qiushu asked curiously, "Is it dead or alive now? Is it an ordinary zombie or a level 3 zombie?" He shook his head. "I don't know, but a level 3 zombie of this size, and a fish out of water, I believe it can't turn out. By the way, haven't your turtles eaten for a long time? How about giving them this fish?" Wan Qiushu shook his head again and again. "I'd better leave it for you to squeeze the juice." He opened the lid and threw the fish in. As soon as the fish went in, it smelled the smell of the zombie virus and pounced directly on the black object. Wan Qiushu laughed. "I didn't expect it to be pretending to be dead just now. It's quite magical." He pressed the switch directly. "It's really magical. It even avoided my scan. But no matter how magical it is, it will be squeezed into juice." The juicer began to rotate, and the fish also rotated with it. However, it can be seen that after the fish ate the black object, a layer of something similar to bones began to grow on its body surface, and then flesh began to grow from the bones. However, as the juicer rotated faster and faster, the situation behind could not be seen. He touched his chin. It seems that the body outside is not its main body, but just grew out from the back to facilitate fighting and eating. And if you don't know that there is a main body, you might let it run away. Wan Qiushu nodded at the side. No wonder they both ended up in the same fate. It turns out that they are all pretending to be rich. He was speechless. Wan Qiushu blinked his big eyes. "Am I wrong?" He shook his head. "No, your idioms are very good." Wan Qiushu snorted coldly. When the juicer stopped, the black object was indeed almost the same as the one squeezed out by the high-speed rail zombies. Then, he squeezed all the fish bones into juice. At this time, Qi suddenly came over and said, "The rain has stopped." Wan Qiushu asked curiously, "Do you think this fish caused the rain? Otherwise, how could the masked man know that it would rain today?" He shrugged his shoulders and said, "It's possible. Or maybe as an aquatic creature, it is more sensitive to water vapor, so it can predict when it will rain." Chapter 155. Settling accounts with the masked man. Wan Qiushu sighed. "It's a pity that I didn't kill this fish, otherwise I would know what its abilities are. Apart from anything else, its invisibility is pretty good." He shook his head. "Invisibility is too limited. It can only be invisible in water. It would be nice if it could be invisible in the air." Compared to this, I think it's good that it can swim in the air when it rains. Not only can it breathe in the water like aquatic creatures, but it can also fly in the air. Uzilan interrupted. Did I disrupt your plan by killing this fish? He waved his hand. No, it's just a skill. I'll kill it next time I see it. Since the rain has stopped, let's go find the masked man to settle the score. Uzilan nodded, walked out first, and took Uzilan's hand. He held the juicer and walked to the place where Wan Kyushu had just been. The glass box was still there. The zombie virus was not dissolved by the water and was still lying inside. He took the virus out of the juicer and put it into a glass box, then closed the lid and then took off his mask. Finally, I can take a break. Wan Kyushu also took off his mask. After the rain, the air is much fresher. And the 2 level 3 zombies are dead, and there will be no zombies running around, and we can even speak louder. He nodded. However, we must also be prepared for the next step. Maybe there were level 3 zombies before, so they were able to scare away other zombies. Now that they are all dead, it is hard to say whether there will be other zombies coming. Hearing this, Uzilan looked back at him. Doesn't that mean that this place is not safe either? He smiled. These are just my speculations. It is always better to be prepared early. However, we don't have many living people or zombies here. So even if there are zombies coming, they are probably some ordinary zombies. The higher the level of the zombies, the less likely they are to come here. After all, there is no food for them here, let alone enough zombies and humans to support their upgrades. Uzilan nodded and walked forward again. They walked down all the way, and it took them a long time to arrive near Uzilan's home. On the street, ordinary zombies transformed by people were wandering around. Their clothes were wet by the rain, but they seemed to feel nothing, with a pair of red eyes open. Hearing the footsteps, the zombies looked over one after another. The next second, they all rushed over like ghosts out of a cage. Uzilan was about to step forward with the soul-breaking knife in her hand, but she felt her hand tighten, and then she remembered that Uzilan was still beside her. She squatted down. Zillion, can you go back with that big brother first? Find a safe place to hide. Uzilan shook her head, but did not speak. Wan Kyushu had already rushed up first, but she did not transform. They were just some ordinary zombies. With her current equipment, she didn't even have to worry about defense. She could just hammer them one by one. He walked forward. Why don't you hide with her first? She's still a child, and this kind of scene is not suitable for her. Uzilan bit her lip and suddenly let go of her hand. Sister, you go. I'll wait for you here. Uzilan nodded and looked at him. Then I'll leave my sister to you. Although he was unarmed, he still nodded. Uzilan distanced herself from him. I don't need this bad guy to protect me. He sighed, but didn't say anything. Uzilan glanced at him and rushed out directly. It must be said that those who have learned kung fu are different. Uzilan's moves are much more beautiful. Wan Kyushu is more clean and neat. Even if more zombies rush over, they can be dealt with one hammer. With these 2 people, those zombies were unable to break through the defense line and hurt the 2 people behind until they died. After a while, the ground was full of corpses. Some of them had no heads, some had their heads smashed into their bodies, and some had their heads exploded directly. He came forward with a juicer, put the body into the juicer, and started to squeeze juice. Uzilan returned to Uzilan, but found that Uzilan was staring at him intently, and asked, "What are you looking at?" Uzilan asked, "What is he doing?" Uzilan thought for a while. He is dealing with the corpses of zombies. Uzilan asked again, "Have they all become zombies? Are they dead? Like Grandpa?" Uzilan's heart skipped a beat, and it took a while for her to answer. Yes, they are like Grandpa. They died the moment they became zombies. They are no longer human. But once they become zombies, they will kill the living once they see the living. At this time, the only way to kill them is to chop off their heads. Since her grandfather died, she has begun to accept reality and pass on information about the end of the world to her sister. If she has an accident one day, she hopes her sister can survive. Uzilan frowned. But, Grandpa didn't hurt us. Uzilan sighed. Yes, Grandpa didn't hurt us, but that's because we are a family. Other zombies won't do that, so if you encounter zombies in the future, you must find a safe place to hide, and don't make any noise. QIU Zillion nodded when she heard that. After a while, the bodies were cleaned up, and they continued to walk down. The streets were wet after the rain, and there was still water in some places, and water droplets would splash when they stepped on them. However, all the people and zombies in this area were dead, so it seemed particularly bleak. When passing by their house, QIU Zillion suddenly asked, "Sister, when are we going home?" The footsteps of several people stopped at the same time. QIU Zillion touched her head. "Let's go do something now, and then go home after we're done." QIU Zillion nodded when she heard that. Then, they continued to walk down, and came to the vicinity of the vegetable market. At this time, he directly opened the scan, and took a look, then shook his head. "The masked man is no longer here." QIU Zillion asked quickly, "Are you sure?" He sighed. "Yes, there are not only no living people in this vegetable market, but also no zombies. Even if there are, they are zombies with the same invisible characteristics as the big fish. As long as they don't get close to the water, they will be fine." QIU Zillion didn't say anything after hearing this. She still wanted to seek revenge on the masked man. Because the big fish was raised by the masked man, and grandpa was killed by the big fish. And since the masked man knew where they lived, he might retaliate. Therefore, the masked man must not be kept. However, she didn't expect that the masked man was so alert and had left long ago. Everything was the same as Li Wending said. He didn't say much and walked in. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 156, Empty Vegetable Market. QIU Zillion hurriedly followed him. "Then do you have any way to find the masked man? He has killed so many people, we must not let him live again. Moreover, he knows a location, which is also a disaster for us." He shook his head. "I'm not a god. Where can I find him? This city is so big. As long as he can avoid zombies, he can go anywhere. However, I think he might go to the little cannon brother last time." QIU Zillion frowned. He killed so many of the little cannon brother's men last time. Will the little cannon brother accept him? He sneered. "Don't forget, this whole market is occupied by him, but the things are not here, so he must have hidden all the food. And with his character, he will definitely have 3 burrows, and will not hide in one place. In the end times, everything is easy, if there is food." As they walked along, the stores they saw were all empty, or there were some rotten foods that could not be seen clearly. Needless to say, they must have been moved away by the masked man. Wan Kyushu asked curiously, "But, that little cannon brother is not easy to deal with. Won't he torture him to extract a confession?" Without the big fish by his side, he must be unable to beat the little cannon brother with a pistol. He laughed. He doesn't have a big fish, but he has the skills. What if he tells a little cannon brother that he can raise another big fish? QIU Zillion was terrified. She was just chased by a big fish and almost lost her life. Naturally, she knew how terrifying the big fish was. She asked hurriedly, "What should we do then?" Wan Kyushu swung the hammer of the earth. "Kill it if it comes." "I'm not afraid of big fish." He sneered. "It doesn't matter whether he can raise another one. What's important is that he can scare the little cannon brother. Think about it. If you can have an obedient zombie monster, wouldn't you be able to walk sideways in this doomsday?" At this point, he looked at Wan Kyushu again. "Are you really not considering breeding your 2 little turtles?" Wan Kyushu rolled his eyes at him unhappily. "Don't even think about it." QIU Zillion also breathed a sigh of relief at this time. At this time, they just walked to a clothes store. He suddenly stopped and said, "Go." Wan Kyushu took a step forward and smashed the door with the hammer of the earth, breaking it open in a few seconds. QIU Zillion asked curiously, "Why do you want to break this door?" He explained, "There are so many stores, but only this one is closed, so the masked man may live here." Wan Kyushu walked in first after hearing that. After walking a few steps, there were indeed traps, such as wild boar traps and animal traps. Fortunately, Wan Kyushu had the skirt of darkness, so these traps could not hurt her. Later, Wan Qiushu simply used the hammer of the earth to clear the way and smashed it randomly. Sure enough, many traps were destroyed. It seems that the masked man is still very cautious. At this time, Wan Qiushu's feet tightened, and the whole person was directly hung upside down in the air. He was helpless. How is the scenery up there? Wan Qiushu replied, it's okay, but it would be better if you could let me down quickly. Qiushu found the other end of the rope, which turned out to be a thick hemp rope. She cut it with the soul-breaking knife, and the rope broke instantly. He had been waiting below, and caught the falling Wan Qiushu. Wan Qiushu untied the noose on his feet. You almost capsized in the gutter. He shook his head. You have already capsized. Wan Qiushu continued to move forward, this time more carefully, and did not fall into the trap again. Afterwards, they searched the house. It is certain that this is where the masked man lives. There is still a lot of food in the kitchen, and you can see traces of recent life. There are also many books on survival in the wild in the house, as well as some outdoor supplies that have not been taken away in time. On the wall, there are words positive written one by one. Wan Qiushu asked curiously, is this guy's hand naughty? Why does he have to write on the wall and make it dirty? It makes my obsessive compulsive disorder uncomfortable. He thought for a while, maybe he uses it to keep records. Qiushu asked casually, record what? He glanced at Qiushu. Record the number of people or zombies killed. There is one thing you may not know. The masked man will turn people into zombies, and then shoot the zombies, to feed the big fish. Qiushu cursed when she heard it. Pervert. He shook his head. You will see more perverted things in the future. Qiushu said nothing. Wan Qiushu seemed to be used to it, and didn't think it was strange. After visiting the house, they walked to the vegetable market opposite. The vegetable market was in chaos, and there were all kinds of rotten vegetables. As expected, the shops in the vegetable market were also emptied. There were several shops selling various groceries here, but they were swept away and nothing was left. He glanced at the empty market, then pointed to a square fish pond and said, go over there and be careful. These fish ponds are used to raise fish. The fishmongers in the market will put live fish in them, and customers can pick them when they need them. They are absolutely fresh. Wan Qiushu walked closer and took a look, then turned back and said, there is still water here, but I didn't find anything. He thought for a moment, then smashed the fish pond. Upon hearing this, Wan Qiushu swung up a sledgehammer and smashed the fish pond in 2 or 3 strokes. The water in the fish pond flowed out, but even if it was dry, there was still nothing in the fish pond, and there was nothing else in the water on the ground. Wan Qiushu looked forward and saw that several fish ponds were full of water, so he smashed those fish ponds, but still found nothing. Qiushu, who had been protecting her sister behind her and was cautious, breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, there are no big fish here. He frowned. It seems that my guess just now has come true. Wan Qiushu came over. What's wrong? He began to analyze. There are so many fish ponds here filled with water, but the big fish obviously doesn't need so much water. In other words, it only needs a large space and doesn't need so many tanks of water to store here. Wan Qiushu was puzzled. Maybe, if there are more fish ponds, it can change to play. He shook his head. These fish ponds are used to raise luofi. Do you remember? The turtles are in the water, so they are not eaten by zombies. I think the luofi fish here are the same. Wan Qiushu was thought for laughter hearing this. He continued, so, it is very likely that there were many luofi fish in these fish ponds, but I don't know whether they are mutated. When the masked man left, he took all the luofi fish away, so it is very likely that he can really breed new big fish. Chapter 157 Return Home. Qiushu looked at him. If it's true, what should we do? Can we only wait until the masked man comes back with a more powerful big fish to seek revenge? He waved his hand. Don't worry so much. It's not that easy for a big fish to upgrade to level 3. I don't know how many zombies it has to eat in the middle. Moreover, the big fish just now obviously won't listen to the masked man's orders. So even if the masked man really raises it, he must be able to command it. Besides, we are not standing still. Qiushu nodded when she heard it and didn't say anything else. She stared at the front, not knowing what she was thinking. Then, they walked around the entire vegetable market, and really found nothing. Wang Qiaiyushu walked on the road bored. It's so boring. I thought I could empty the whole vegetable market this time. Who knew someone would get there first? He smiled. It's not that we haven't gained anything. Doesn't the masked man still have some stock at home? We'll just move it back later. Wang Qiaiyushu suddenly looked at him at this time. The masked man doesn't have much food at home. Do you think he hides the food very close to here, or even nearby? He thought about it, and finally shook his head. No, he is such a cunning person. He will definitely not hide the food nearby. First, it's too easy to be discovered. Second, once it's like now, he can only run away, and the food will be gone. So, his food must be hidden somewhere far away. Wang Qiaiyushu frowned. But, he is just an ordinary person. Even if he has a car that can go far away, won't it attract the attention of the zombies? He smiled. Did you forget that he still has a level 3 big fish in his hand? Not to mention that the big fish can lure other zombies. He can do whatever he wants. Wang Qiaiyushu nodded. That's right. Now that we're finished visiting the vegetable market, are we going to go back? He thought for a while. Well, get ready to go back. Go and move out everything that can be used in the masked man's house. Wang Qiaiyushu looked at him. What about you? He walked downstairs. I'll go get some things and be back soon. Wang Qiaiyushu nodded. Then be careful. Qiaiyushu looked at his receding back. Is it okay for him to go alone? He doesn't seem to have any weapons or protective gear. Wang Qiaiyushu waved his hand. Don't worry about him. Even if he is empty-handed, he is better than us. Moreover, with his cautious personality, he will definitely not put himself in danger. Qiaiyushu didn't say anything more after hearing this. After taking Qiaiyushu into the house, she asked her to sit on a chair. You sit here obediently. Sister will go to move things. Okay. Qiaiyushu shook her head. I want to help too. Qiaiyushu thought for a while. Okay, but don't move anything too heavy. Qiaiyushu nodded. At this time, Wang Qiaiyushu passed by carrying a bag of rice. Zillion is so obedient. Qiaiyushu glanced at her, opened her mouth, but didn't speak. Wang Qiaiyushu didn't mind, and continued to move forward. Qiaiyushu suddenly said, beautiful sister, if you don't talk to that bad guy, I will play with you. Wang Qiaiyushu's steps staggered, and she looked back at Qiaiyushu, but she didn't know what to do. Qiaiyushu touched her head. That brother is not a bad guy. He saved us. Qiaiyushu pouted. He is a bad guy. Wang Qiaiyushu sighed. Forget it. She will understand in the future, so don't force her now. Qiaiyushu nodded and helped to move. When they were almost done moving, he came back dragging 3 carts for moving goods. The cart is about 2 square meters in size, with a flat plate on top and 4 wheels underneath. There is a handle on one side that can be dragged. Generally, people use this to carry some slightly heavier goods. Wang Qiaiyushu breathed a sigh of relief. I was worried about how to pull so many things back later. Now it's convenient. He nodded and pointed behind him. Look what this is. Wang Qiaiyushu took a look. What are those brown particles from? He had to say, these are feeds. They should be fish food. Anyway, I found them in the goldfish store. But it should be okay to feed turtles. Wang Qiaiyushu hugged him excitedly. Great, my little turtles finally have something to eat. He nodded in agreement. I hope they grow up quickly and eat white and fat. Wang Qiaiyushu let go of his hand. Don't think about them. He nodded helplessly. Okay, let's go back now. Then, the 3 of them began to move those things onto the cart. Afterwards, they searched again and moved all the things that could be used in the vegetable market, a full 3 carts. They each dragged a cart back. Fortunately, Qiaiyushu was a kung fu practitioner and had a lot of strength. Needless to say, he took the powerful pills every day, so his physical strength was beyond words. Wang Qiaiyushu killed zombies every day, so her physical strength was also exercised. Qiaiyushu sat directly on the cart, saving the trouble of walking. However, when they returned to their door, Qiaiyushu stopped without saying a word. Then, Qiaiyushu climbed down from the pile of goods nimbly and ran straight to the door. After finding that the door could not be opened, she looked back at Qiaiyushu, Sister, open the door quickly, let's go home. Qiu Zilin wiped the tears from her face with her hand, walked over with a smile. Yes, let's go home. After opening the door, the two sisters walked up. Wang Qiushu looked at him next to him. Should we go up? Or will the two sisters stay at home and refuse to go with us? He sighed. Anyway, I have done what I should do, and I'm worthy of their grandfather. As for how they choose, that is their business. Wang Qiushu nodded. Then let's wait here for a while. Not long after, Qiu Zilin took Qiu Zillion downstairs with a big gun in her hand. Qiu Zillion held a rag doll tightly in her hand. It was a birthday gift from her grandfather. Sister, will we come back? Qiu Zilin nodded and choked up. We will come back. We can come back at any time. This is our home. But now we have to move to a safe place. Qiu Zillion looked at the rag doll in her hand. Well, Zillion will definitely listen to her sister. Qiu Zillion put her sister on the cart and put the big gun away. Let's go. They continued to drag the cart back. Since they did not encounter any zombies along the way, they returned to the front of the building without any obstacles. Chapter 158 The Little Turtle's Name. Because it rained so hard today, the bucket was already full of water. This meant that they wouldn't have to worry about water for some time to come. Qiu Zillion saw the bucket full of water and couldn't help but remind them, you can't drink this water. You'll turn into a zombie if you drink it. Wang Qiushu smiled and said, don't worry, we have a water purifier that can clean this water and then you can drink it. Qiu Zillion nodded. Then, they moved all the things to the room on the second floor. After a long time of work, they put these things away. Then, they went upstairs. Wang Qiushu was holding a large bag of fish food in his hand, with a smile on his face, and he was obviously in a good mood. As they walked, Qiu Zillion suddenly asked in a low voice, sister, do we really have to live with them? Before Qiu Zillion could answer, he said, those people may come at any time. Such a door cannot stop them, and we cannot be on guard 24 hours a day. So, you'd better live next door to us. After a pause, he said, if you really don't want to, then live on the 7th floor. If you go down, I'm afraid I won't be able to notify you in time if there is any disturbance. Qiu Zillion thought about it and said to her, Zillion, be good, we just live next door to them. We can't see each other if we close the door. Qiu Zillion hesitated for a while and finally nodded. When they reached the 8th floor, he had already crossed the corner of the stairs. At this time, Qiu Zillion secretly pulled the corner of Wang Qiushu's clothes. Wang Qiushu turned around and saw Qiu Zillion looking at him. What's wrong? Qiu Zillion whispered, sister, did you raise two little turtles? Wang Qiushu nodded. Do you want to see? Qiu Zillion looked tangled, nodded, and shook her head. Wang Qiushu thought for a while and handed over the fish food. Take this, I'll take the little turtles to your room later, okay? Qiu Zillion took the doll in one hand and the fish food in the other, nodding desperately. Wang Qiushu smiled at Qiu Zillion, then turned and left. Qiu Zillion was slightly relieved to see her sister like this, hoping that the little turtles could divert her attention. After all, losing grandpa was too cruel for a child, especially when he witnessed his grandfather's death with his own eyes. As soon as he opened the door, Wang Qiushu came over with cheerful steps. He smiled and said, what is there to make you so happy? Wang Qiushu smiled back at him. I can't explain it to you clearly. The happiness of us girls is so simple. He shook his head and pushed the door open. Wang Qiushu followed in and brought out the little turtle with the basin. He immediately guessed what Wang Qiushu was going to do and reminded her, just feed each one a few grains. More will cause waste and pollute the water quality. Our water can't afford such waste. Wang Qiushu nodded. Got it. He said to himself again, obviously everyone has a share. Why am I the only one who is regarded as a bad guy? Wang Qiushu stood at the door and smiled. Appearance is justice. I can tell at a glance that I'm not a bad guy, unlike some people. He rushed over directly. Then I will show you what a bad guy looks like today. Wang Qiushu screamed and quickly hid in Qiu Zillion's room. He smiled, walked back and sat down, and began to check the messages sent by the system. On the other side, Qiu Zillion looked at Wang Qiushu who was still panting. Sister, did that bad guy bully you again? Wan Kyushu was about to nod, but when she saw Qiu Zilan's eyes, she quickly changed her words and said, no, sister and brother are just playing a game of chasing people. Qiu Zilan said, oh. Wan Kyushu put down the basin in her hand. Never mind that, look at what this is. Qiu Zilan's attention was immediately attracted, and she looked at the two turtles in the basin. However, because the basin was shaking, the two turtles shrank into their shells and refused to come out. Qiu Zilan looked up at Wan Kyushu. Sister, why can't I see them? Wan Kyushu didn't know how to answer. After bringing these two turtles back, she had been throwing them in there and had never taken care of them. She immediately thought of Li Wending, but considering Qiu Zilan's attitude towards him, she gave up the idea. At this time, Qiu Zilan stepped forward to help. When turtles are frightened, they will retract their bodies into their shells, which can protect them. When they think there is no danger, they will come out. So now just wait patiently. Wan Kyushu was relieved immediately. Qiu Zilan asked again, then can I feed them now? Wan Kyushu glanced at Qiu Zilan and said uncertainly, it should be possible, but just throw a few grains in, don't feed too much, they can't finish it. Qiu Zilan nodded, I know, Grandpa said that food should not be wasted. Wan Kyushu and Qiu Zilan's expressions froze immediately, not knowing what to say. Qiu Zilan opened the bag of fish food, then took out a few grains of fish food from it with her little hand, and sprinkled them on the water. The turtle's head had already stretched out a little, but it was frightened, and shrank back again. Qiu Zilan asked again, sister, what are the names of these two turtles? Wan Kyushu replied, I haven't named them yet, why don't you give them one? Qiu Zilan looked at the two turtles, one is black, and the other is brown. Wan Kyushu remembered what he said at the beginning, and began to popularize science. This black one is a male turtle. Because it is black, it is what we often call a turtle. And this brown one is a female turtle. They are the same species, and they happen to be a male and female pair. Qiu Zilan asked curiously, what does a pair mean? Wan Kyushu thought for a while, it means living together, probably like that. Qiu Zilan nodded, then this male turtle will be called Grandpa, and this brown one will be called Zillion. Zillion lives with Grandpa, and so does the turtle. When the time comes, find another one, and call it Zillion, and it will be exactly the three of us. Wan Kyushu slapped his forehead. What is the point of talking about male and female turtles? What is a pair? Qiu Zilan looked at Wan Kyushu again. Sister, what do you think? Wan Kyushu didn't know how to answer. Qiu Zilan on the side said, it's up to you. You can call them whatever you want. Wan Kyushu also said, from now on, these two turtles will be in your care. You must take good care of them. Qiu Zilan clapped her hands. Yes, I will. At this time, the two turtles stretched out their heads at the same time, took a bite of the fish food, and then retracted them. Chapter 159 New Products. After Wan Kyushu left, he opened the system, and a series of ding-ding sounds came out, almost knocking him out. After a while, he woke up, and began to check the system information. Ding, the host successfully killed a level 3 zombie, and gained 1000 experience points. The host completed the promotion task and successfully promoted to level 3, and the assistant promoted to level 3. New products have been added to them all, please choose to buy them. The assistant's equipment can continue to be upgraded. He looked down again, and the latter was indeed the information about killing those ordinary zombies. Although he had prepared for it, he still felt a little sad when he really saw it. 1000 experience points are enough for him to take the powerful pills for 10 days, which is 10 minutes. And he doesn't necessarily have to take it himself. He can share some with Wan Kyushu, and everyone can improve together. By then, Wan Kyushu can support a transformation for more than 10 minutes, which is amazing. Now there are only 1000 experience points. Although it seems a lot, there will be no much left after upgrading the equipment and a series of things. Wan Kyushu was not here, so he could not upgrade his equipment or evolve. So, he opened them all directly to see what new things the system would provide. For example, the paparazzi suit was a good thing, but unfortunately, after completing the promotion task, it was taken back by the system. not to mention the high-powered telescope, which not only can see far, but also can penetrate walls. It is perfect for reconnaissance. You can always know what is happening in a far place and anticipate the enemy. The invisible cloth, let alone. If you can wear that thing, not to mention killing zombies one level higher, it is not a problem to kill zombies with more levels. What is the difference between an invisible opponent and a cheater? It's like the big fish blending into the water, and even a strong high-speed rail zombie can only be beaten. If it hadn't hidden in the restaurant, the high-speed rail zombie would have been killed long ago. The most important thing is that this paparazzi suit can also be used. Hehe. Thinking of this, he quickly gathered his mind and said to himself, I'm a good person, I'm a gentleman. After a long time, he calmed down and officially checked the things in the mall. There were many new items added to the mall, but the paparazzi suit he wanted was missing. But think about it, the effect of that suit was a bit too much, and it was not something that someone of his level could get. First, there was the third level stamina potion. Instant stamina recovery can only be used 3 times a day, and it takes 20 experience points to buy it. Well, this was basically just for show. Unless you encounter some special circumstances, you generally don't need stamina potions, let alone 3rd level stamina potions. Next was the 3rd level healing potion, instant healing, and it lasts for 1 minute, can only be used once a day, and it takes 20 experience points to buy it. This was not bad, mainly because it lasted for 1 minute. In other words, within 1 minute, as long as you are not instantly fatally injured, such as being shot in the head, you should be able to recover directly. This is a good choice for dealing with some tricky zombies, or for challenging higher level enemies. After all, it is equivalent to not dying for 1 minute, and 1 minute can often determine the outcome. Unfortunately, the time is still too short, and there are restrictions on its use, but it is still pretty good. Then he looked down and saw the middle level vigor pill. Only 1 pill can be taken per day. It can permanently increase physical strength for 2 minutes. It takes 300 experience points to buy it. The cost effectiveness of this pill is obviously not as good as the primary vigor pill. Well, you can consider it when you have experience points, but don't know where to spend them. He is obviously not rich enough now. At this time, he noticed that a new drug appeared. The pattern was a syringe. He clicked it quickly. Transformation needle. The injection can transform people into zombies to fight, or those who become zombies through this drug are the host's assistants and are controlled by the host. It takes 20 experience points to buy it. He nodded. The appearance of this needle was different. This means that he can have a lot of assistants. Of course, the premise is that his physical strength is enough and will not be drained. The most important thing is that those assistants are under his control. In other words, he can control those assistants who have become zombies to help him hunt zombies or to spy on intelligence. As for some other functions, they need to be explored slowly in the future. In short, this needle is extremely useful. In addition, he is also struggling with the matter of transformation. In the past, there were only him and Wang Qiushu, and their relationship was already established, so it didn't matter how they transformed. Now it's different, with the addition of the two sisters Qiuzilin. Although he can explain to Qiuzilin, and Qiuzilin may not care about this, Qiuzilin is still a child, and she can't always watch these scenes that are not suitable for children. Moreover, if someone asks him in the future, he can say that he is a scientist and has developed this needle that can turn people into zombies, which is more credible than saying that he has some supernatural powers. However, this needle still has limitations. That is, it is inconvenient to carry. Fortunately, he has a system and can exchange it when needed. As for Wang Qiushu, he can carry 1 or 2 with him as a backup. Continuing to look down, there is a pattern of a bell and a red rope. He was a little confused. Aren't these 2 things used to catch ghosts and exorcise evil spirits? Zombies are so sensitive to sound. If you take out a bell and knock it, I'm afraid all the zombies around will rush over. Clicking on the introduction, he found that it was not what he thought. Invisible bell. When the red rope is touched, the sound of the bell will sound in the host's brain, sounding an alarm, but at the same time the bell and the red rope will also appear. It takes 10 experience points to buy it, and 10 experience points per hour after it is activated. How can I say this bell? First of all, it is invisible, so it is almost impossible for the other party to avoid it without knowing it, unless they are very lucky. And the sound will be transmitted directly to your brain, which is timely, and you don't have to worry about not being able to wake up after falling asleep. However, after being touched, the bell and the red rope will appear. In other words, when you receive the alarm, the other party will also know that your whereabouts have been discovered. In this way, you will not have much time to react. In addition, the experience points purchased are not much, but it takes 10 experience points per hour to use it, and 10 experience points for 10 hours a night is 100 experience points. Calculated in this way, the cost is very expensive. Therefore, this cost determines that he cannot use it continuously. It is better to save so many experience points to buy powerful pills. However, I don't know when the masked man will come back, so it's not bad to buy one when I need it. He didn't want to stand guard every day to guard against the masked man. It would be more comfortable to sleep. Chapter 160,000 Corpses. Continuing to look down, there is a D-level medical mask. It can block the virus and smell of zombies below level 4 for 10 minutes. It requires 100 experience points to buy it. It can be upgraded. After it expires, it can be restored by standing for 1 hour. He noticed that the previous disposable masks only blocked smells, while this D-level mask blocked viruses and smells. It seems that the virus of level 4 zombies may be contagious and harmful to the human body. Moreover, the D-level mask can be upgraded and can recover itself. It's just that 100 experience points is a bit expensive. It's better to use a disposable mask before encountering a level 4 zombie. He looked again and didn't see any new gloves. It seems that the virus of level 4 zombies is mainly infected through the respiratory system and will not be infected by direct contact with the limbs. Otherwise, the system will definitely provide new gloves. After thinking about it, he asked, "System, if the assistant transforms into a zombie, will he be infected by the other party's virus?" The system quickly answered, "Because both parties are zombies and have the same virus in their bodies, they will not be infected." He nodded, and then he was relieved. Otherwise, if the assistant is also infected during the battle, it will be bad. For higher level battles, half an hour is normal, just like the previous battle between the high-speed rail zombie and the big fish. The mask can only last for 10 minutes, which is obviously not enough. Then, he opened the panel again. Host, Li Wending level 3 physical condition, no injury experience. 1175 number of zombies to be killed to advance to the next level. 9943 number of assistants. 1 time to support the transformation of the assistant. 13 minutes, increases with physical fitness, weapon, death, and life sword title. 1000 corpses / not worn, assistant 1 Kyushu level. 3 physical condition, no injury, can evolve once, special skills, head hardening, free extension of arms, treatment transformation time. 8 minutes, increases with physical fitness, weapon, hammer of the earth, soul breaking sword armor, dark skirt, dark shoes. The next upgrade really requires killing 10,000 zombies, that is, 10 level 3 zombies. Killing those ordinary zombies in the vegetable market just now only increased the number by dozens. Although 1 hit per zombie, it was too slow after all. If a level 3 zombie came now, 1 Kyushu could kill it and directly increase the number by 1000. It was simple and fast. However, there were no level 3 zombies nearby. If he wanted to kill them, he had to look for them. As expected, his physical strength increased by 1 minute with the upgrade, which could at least support 1 Kyushu's full transformation. But if there was another assistant, he would not be able to hold on. He sighed and it seemed that he had to continue taking drugs. The next one was a title, and it was not worn. He could guess the general meaning of this title. After all, the number of zombies killed by 1 Kyushu was counted on him. But what was the function of this title? He asked directly, "System, what's the situation with this title?" System, since the host has reached level 3 and has killed more than 1000 zombies, the title system is enabled. The more the host kills, the higher the title will be. Different titles will have different effects. Please check it yourself. This is similar to what he guessed, but the system said so much, but it was still a lot of nonsense, and the key things were not said. So, he did not wear it directly, but chose to click it. Usually the system only said half of what it said, and it was ready to trick him, so it was better to be safe. 1000 Corpse Slayer, the holder of this title has killed more than 1000 zombies. After wearing this title, it has a deterrent effect on zombies below level 3. It has an attractive effect on level 3 zombies. If a level 3 zombie successfully kills a title wearer, it can be directly promoted. He patted his chest. Fortunately, he did not wear it rashly, otherwise he would be finished. If a level 3 zombie wants to upgrade, it must either kill a certain number of its own kind, or accumulate enough experience or energy to upgrade to level 4. Now, as long as he is killed, he can be promoted directly, ignoring the experience required in the middle, so he will definitely become a hot commodity in the eyes of level 3 zombies. Moreover, killing him alone is much less risky than killing countless zombies of the same level. So once he wears it, who knows how many level 3 zombies will be attracted. They only have one Kyushu, who is only level 3 now, and it is impossible for him to withstand the siege. He shook his head. This thing is of no great use to him now. If it is just to deter zombies below level 3, it is enough to let one Kyushu transform. If he has more assistants, he can try the effect of this title. At that time, let the assistants find a place to ambush and hit every level 3 zombie that comes, and the experience will definitely increase. Thinking of this, he looked at the one behind the number of assistants and couldn't help sighing. Alas, it's hard to find assistants. The main reason is that he didn't meet many people, and even if he met them, most of them were unreliable. Finally, he met Kyuzulan, but with their current relationship, Kyuzulan might not agree to be his assistant. And Wang Kyushu had no choice at that time, so he chose to become a zombie. Kyuzulan also had to take care of her sister, so she might not agree. Speaking of zombies, he remembered that there were some things he hadn't asked the system. System, what is the use of the zombie virus? Can you reveal some new information? System, the extract of the zombie virus can turn people into zombies. Please collect a large amount of it. Although it was just a short sentence, it set off a huge wave in his heart. The zombie virus can turn people into zombies. There is nothing strange about it. However, combined with the auxiliary transformation method and the transformation needle just now, the meaning is different. In other words, if the zombie virus can be further refined, then it may be possible to turn people into zombies to fight, and it is reversible. In that case, the probability of human survival will be greatly increased. After all, from now on, no one has awakened superpowers in the end times. Even kung fu masters like Kyuzulan and her grandfather have not, otherwise they would have beaten the zombies long ago. Her grandfather also proved that the higher the kung fu and the stronger the physique, the greater the increase in power after becoming a zombie. In addition, humans have another advantage over zombies, that is, humans have intelligence and can use tools. Although zombies can also use simple tools, high-level zombies will have various strategies in battle. However, they are not as good as humans after all. Humans can use more complex firearms and other hot weapons, set traps in advance, and even use various strategies, which zombies cannot do. Chapter 161 New Goal. However, these have nothing to do with him now. He has neither the technology nor the corresponding equipment to manufacture it. Even if he can manufacture it, he will not distribute it casually. This thing is a double-edged sword after all. Once it falls into the hands of someone with bad intentions, they may turn against their own people first. He doesn't want to be on guard against zombies and humans, so he will wait until later. However, he still asked, System, is there any equipment that can manufacture the transformation needle? Or it can be used to extract the zombie virus? Mainly, he didn't want the system to make a profit from the price difference. If he could make the transformation needle himself, he could save a lot of experience points. After all, the cost is equivalent to nothing, and he only needs to keep killing zombies to extract the zombie virus. Sure enough, The system directly replied, the manufacturing equipment of the transformation needle requires a huge amount of experience points, and it is extremely difficult to operate. It is not recommended for the host to buy it. As for the machine for refining the zombie virus, there is of course, but there is no way to further make the transformation needle, so it is meaningless to the host. He couldn't help but sigh. System, you finally didn't cheat me for once. You know, a car requires 100,000 experience points, which is already a lot for him. What's more, the system said that a huge amount of experience points is required, which is probably an astronomical figure. Therefore, he has no longer considered doing it himself and having enough food and clothing. Since the transformation needle cannot be made, the machine used to refine the zombie virus is naturally not within the scope of consideration. At this time, he remembered another thing. System, I'm now level 3, can I turn off the auxiliary transformation? This is the most important thing. Isn't it for this that he has worked so hard to upgrade? System, no. However, the host level is sufficient to know the corresponding information. When the host level reaches level 4, the auxiliary transformation function can be turned on or off. When he heard that it couldn't be done, his heart sank. However, the system's next words gave him new hope. It was only level 4. He only needed to kill 9,000 more zombies. He rubbed his hands and set a small goal first, to kill 10,000 of them. By then, he and Wang Qiuyushu could do it. Hehe, just thinking about it made him a little excited. Suddenly, the door opened, and Wang Qiuyushu walked in, frowning at him. Why are you smiling so lasciviously? His smile froze, and he quickly said seriously, I just upgraded, I'm happy. By the way, why did you come back suddenly? Wang Qiuyushu sat down. No, I came back, after giving the turtle to Zillion. He nodded. Are they both okay? Wang Qiuyushu sighed. Zillion is better. Zillion is a child after all, and may not be able to accept this. He replied, that can't be helped. By the way, give me your dark skirt and dark shoes first, and I'll help you upgrade. Hearing this, Wang Qiuyushu went to change the dark skirt and dark shoes. He started upgrading various equipment. As expected, this upgrade did not add new features, but increased the original damaging probability. Hammer of the Earth increased the lethality to zombies by 60%. Weighed 60% less than before. Critical hit, 40% chance to kill an opponent with a lower level than yourself. Soul-breaking sword increased the lethality to zombies by 60%. Soul-breaking sword, when it hits the opponent's head, there is a 30% chance to kill an opponent with a lower level than yourself. Skirt of Darkness can block the attacks of zombies of level 3 and below. Rebound, whenever attacked, there is a 40% chance to rebound the opponent's attack. Shoes of Darkness increase movement speed by 60%. Shaping, every kick, there is a 30% chance of a perfect hit. Death Sword increased the lethality to zombies by 60%. Doubled, the blade can become twice as long. All equipment has been upgraded and looks better. His experience was also deducted by 100 points, but relatively speaking, the cost effectiveness is still very high. He looked at Wang Qiuyushu again. By the way, you still have a chance to evolve. What do you want to evolve into this time? Wang Qiuyushu frowned and thought for a while. I want to get bigger. He glanced at Wang Qiuyushu. It's already big enough. If it's bigger, it won't be very convenient to move. Wang Qiuyushu said contemptuously. What are you thinking about? I'm talking about the enlargement of the body. He nodded. That's what I said. Wang Qiuyushu pushed him. Oh, I'm talking about making the body bigger. Since watching their fight, I found that size is the most important. As long as they are big enough, you don't even have to do anything. You can crush them to death. He smiled. I understand what you mean, but let's not talk about whether you can get bigger. Even if you can, your clothes and shoes can't withstand it. Have you forgotten the cloth strips on the high-speed rail zombie? Wang Qiuyushu's face fell when he heard it. What should I do? Is my path to becoming a strong man cut off? He waved his hand. Don't you just want to crush the opponent? In addition to getting bigger, there is another simpler and more brutal way, which is to increase strength. Wang Qiuyushu asked in confusion. Strength? He nodded. Yes, one force can break all laws. As long as you crush the opponent in strength, you can still beat them. Wan Qiushu smiled and said, okay, then strengthen my strength. He said directly to the system. System, evolve Wan Qiushu's strength. System, strength needs to be enhanced through exercise or physical improvement, and it cannot be evolved directly. He thought about it, and changed his words. Then evolve missiles, and enhance instantaneous explosive power. As long as the instantaneous explosive power is strong enough, it can also play a role in enhancing strength. Sure enough, the system said directly, assist Wan Qiushu to successfully evolve muscles and increase instantaneous explosive characteristics. He told Wan Qiushu the results of the evolution. Wan Qiushu asked first, if I evolve muscles directly, will I become that kind of muscular girl? He rushed over directly, and Wan Qiushu successfully transformed in a short while. Wan Qiushu looked at his body. Except for feeling stronger, there was no change in his body. She breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it's not what I imagined. He looked at Wan Qiushu at this time. Cancel the transformation. Wan Qiushu looked at him. Why did you cancel it so soon? We haven't even tested the new features yet. He chuckled and pounced on her again. Cancel the transformation. Wait a minute. Cancel the transformation. There's someone next to us. Just keep your voice down. Cancel the transformation. You're being a hooligan. Cancel the transformation. No, I can't breathe. Wan Qiushu waved his hand. He pounced on her again. Don't, I finally came up with this solution. We won't have to go through so much trouble when we reach level 4. Chapter 162. Keep a hand. 10 minutes later, Wan Qiushu lay in his arms with a red face, and it seemed that he could not even lift his hands. It feels more tiring than killing a level 3 zombie. He shook his head. You can't fool me. If you were really that tired, you wouldn't have been able to transform just now. So, this little bit of physical consumption can be replenished in a moment for you. Wan Qiushu pinched his waist directly with his hands. You just know how to act like a hooligan every day. His face was distorted with pain, and he hurriedly said, I wasn't being a hooligan just now. I was actually just confirming something. Wan Qiushu didn't quite believe it, but the strength in his hands decreased a little. Confirm what? He hurriedly said, didn't you kill that high-speed rail zombie? It can be regarded as a cross-level kill, so I wanted to see if you have gained any new abilities, so I tried a few more times. Wan Qiushu frowned and looked at him. Is that so? He nodded repeatedly. Really? Wan Qiushu said again. But, I remember that last time, when I transformed, you knew whether I had gained the other party's ability. Why did it take you so long to confirm this time? He vaguely felt a murderous aura and quickly replied, aren't you unwilling to believe it? Think about it, the copper skin and iron bones of the high-speed rail zombie are so hard, and the local hardening property is also good things. So when I didn't receive the prompt of obtaining the property for the first time, I couldn't accept it at all, so I tried it a few more times. Wan Qiushu snorted coldly and then let go. He then said, by the way, what is the characteristic of your instant burst like? Do you want to try it again? Wan Qiushu glanced at him unhappily. You wish. I have felt it just now. That instant burst seems to be able to burst out all the strength of my body in an instant to cause maximum damage. Of course, the degree of this burst can be controlled by me. If it is a full strength burst, I will be exhausted and turn back into a human directly. He nodded. That's not bad. If you take physical strength potion again, you can burst several times, which is enough to make the opponent drink a pot. Wan Qiushu nodded. Well, add the hammer of the earth, and the opponent will be crippled if he doesn't die with one hammer. He looked at the hammer of the earth that had become larger with the upgrade and couldn't help laughing. I guess you don't have to use your full strength. Just holding this hammer out is scary enough. Wan Qiushu picked up the hammer of the earth. Although it has become larger, the weight is lighter than before. By the way, aren't you going to upgrade Zilan's equipment? He shook his head. Her level 2 equipment is enough, and it's not necessary to kill zombies. Wan Qiushu sat down next to him. Aren't you going to take her in as your assistant? He frowned and looked at Wan Qiushu. You have no objection? Wan Qiushu sighed. Level 3 zombies are so scary. I will definitely not be able to deal with level 4 zombies in the future. Besides, she is so good at kung fu, and she is beautiful, how can you not be tempted? As for me, in those apocalyptic novels, the male protagonists have several women, so I have been mentally prepared. He hugged Wang Qiuyushu. Let's talk about the future later. As for her, my relationship with her is not suitable to mention this matter now. Besides, even if I'll let her be my assistant, it doesn't mean anything. Wang Qiuyushu snorted coldly. I agreed to you in a daze at the beginning, but now I have put myself in it. He laughed. Do you regret it now? Wang Qiuyushu shook her head. That's not the case. But how do you know she won't be like this in the future? He sighed and took out a transformation needle. Look at what this is. Wang Qiuyushu looked at the syringe and asked curiously, where did you get it? You are not trying to play some nurse play, are you? He was speechless. Am I such a person? This is called a transformation needle. Just inject it, and you can transform into a zombie. Wang Qiuyushu looked at the needle, then looked at him. Since you have this thing, why didn't you take it out just now? Sure enough, you were just being a hooligan. He hurriedly explained. The main reason is that this thing is too expensive. One needle needs to kill 20 ordinary zombies to make a profit. At the frequency we used just now, we have to spend it all. Wang Qiuyushu thought of what happened just now, and his face turned red. That means, I can also use this to transform in the future? He nodded. Well, it's better to use this. Wang Qiuyushu looked at him. Are you worried that, if you don't use this, it will affect your plan to take Zilan into the harem? He couldn't help but poke Wang Qiuyushu's forehead. What are you thinking about? First of all, we have to transform secretly, as if we are doing something shady. But, if we don't do that, it won't be good in front of the two of them, especially Zillion. Secondly, no one knows our transformation method. Even if they know the existence of the transformation needle in the future, they can only take the needle away. We can keep a hand as a counterattack at the critical moment. Wang Qiuyushu nodded. Well, I'll listen to you. He looked at Wang Qiuyushu's slightly raised mouth. Why do you look a little happy? Do you dislike me so much? Wang Qiuyushu laughed directly. Do I look very happy? He was speechless. Wang Qiuyushu finally stopped and asked, by the way, there are so many people now, shouldn't we get the water heater and washing machine out? He thought for a while. As for the water heater, you are all women, and sometimes it is indeed not suitable to wash with cold water. But, there is no need for a washing machine. Your clothes will not be dirty, and you usually just wash some underwear and the like. Wang Qiuyushu shook his head. That's also very troublesome. The washing machine is so good. Just put it in. You don't have to do anything. He did not speak, mainly because if he wanted to upgrade, he would definitely need a lot of experience points, and he wanted to save them for taking powerful pills. At this time, Wang Qiuyushu leaned close to his ear and whispered, if there was a washing machine, I could wear stockings every day in the future. His heartbeat instantly accelerated. But, doesn't the dark skirt allow you to change clothes at will? Why do you have to wear real stockings? Moreover, stockings don't have the non-stick property, and they will easily get stuck with black liquid. Wang Qiuyushu continued, the stockings are inside the dark skirt, so they will be blocked, and won't get dirty. Moreover, virtual is different from real after all. Don't you want to see me wearing stockings? He took a deep breath. Upgrade. I must upgrade. I'll go upgrade now. I can't stand washing clothes by hand every day. Wang Qiuyushu smiled smugly at the side. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 163. Go to the shopping plaza. It took 100 experience points to upgrade the water heater and washing machine. He looked at the two things and then at Wang Qiuyushu. Why do I feel like I've been fooled by you? When did you become so smart? Wang Qiuyushu smiled and said, some things are innate, but now it's good. I can finally take a hot shower and don't have to wash clothes by hand. He nodded and moved the two things out to the sun. Wang Qiuyushu then asked, what should we do next? He answered directly, the next step is of course, to continue killing zombies and upgrade. Wang Qiushu was speechless. Of course I know it's to upgrade. I'm asking which direction to go. He thought for a while. There is a shopping mall in the northeast. Let's kill our way there and clean up the zombies nearby. Wang Qiushu's eyes were full of expectations. I've forgotten how long it has been since I went shopping. So when should we set off? Now? He shook his head quickly. Of course not now. Let's wait until tomorrow. Wang Qiushu ran out immediately after hearing this. I want to tell them this good news. He thought for a long time, but he really couldn't figure out what good news this was. That night, he was still in charge of cooking, mainly because he was used to it. However, after cooking, he divided the food into 2 portions. Wang Qiushu ran back, after smelling the food, and asked when he saw the food, why divide it into 2 portions? Did you make too much? He shook his head. 1 portion is for Zilan and the others. Wang Qiushu was surprised. Then why don't you just let them come and eat together? Why is it so troublesome? He sighed. I'm afraid Zillion will lose her mood to eat when she sees me. Wang Qiushu nodded, picked up the food, and then smiled. Why didn't I realize that you are so careful before? He waved his hand. I have many advantages that you haven't discovered yet. Wang Qiushu walked to the door and looked back at him. There is still a long time in the future. Let me discover them slowly. He opened his mouth, but before he could think of what to say, Wang Qiushu had disappeared at the door. The next morning, the 4 of them set out together and headed for the shopping mall. At the same time, they also took the cart that was carrying the goods and brought them back directly. Wang Qiushu was naturally very happy, and even his steps became much lighter. Qiu Zillion was led by Qiu Zilan, who was far away from him. Qiu Zilan looked at him several times, wanting to say something but stopping herself. The zombies they encountered on the road were all ordinary zombies, not even level 1 zombies, so Wang Qiushu didn't need to transform at all, and he easily got rid of those zombies. There was no other way. Her current equipment was only able to resist level 3 zombies, let alone these ordinary zombies. After walking for a while, they were not far from the shopping mall, so they chose a building and killed their way in as their temporary base. There were quite a few ordinary zombies in the building, but they were all locked in the room. For safety reasons, Wang Qiushu simply smashed the door open and killed them all. Finally, a group of them came to a room on the top floor. Wang Qiushu stretched his body. I feel much better now. I don't feel tired after killing for so long. He thought for a while. Maybe as you level up, your physical strength increases, which also increases your current strength. Wang Qiushu nodded. That should be the case. I will be able to transform after a rest. He took the soul-breaking knife and began to cut the security net. After the transformation, Wang Qiushu could go down directly from here without climbing the stairs. The 2 sisters Qiu Zilan stood aside at a loss. Wang Qiushu patted the chair. Come and sit down. Why are you so reserved? Qiu Zilan heard the words and pulled Qiu Zillion to sit down. After a while, she looked at Wang Qiushu. Is there anything I can do to help? Wang Qiushu looked at Qiu Zilan, then looked at him. Ask him. I always listen to him. He happened to come back with the cut security net. Hearing this, he couldn't help but ask. What are you asking? Qiu Zilan looked at him. Is there anything I can do to help? He shook his head. No. Qiu Zilan bit her lip. He explained. We just need to wait here for a while. When Wang Qiushu clears the zombies in the shopping mall, we can go in and move things. So, there is nothing you need to help with. Qiu Zilan was stunned for a moment. We just need to wait here? He asked. What else? Qiu Zilan looked at him. I can also kill zombies. Just lend me the knife. He shook his head. If you go to kill zombies, what about your sister? Qiu Zilan glanced at him and then said, I can hide in the room. I won't go out. He said again, what should I do? Qiu Zilan and her sister looked at him with contempt. He didn't explain anything. Wang Qiushu said quickly, then it's settled. I'll go clean up the zombies, and you'll be responsible for protecting the 2 of them here. Qiu Zilan thought for a moment. Okay then. Wang Qiushu then took out the soul-breaking knife. Here's to you. If anyone or any zombie appears here, they will be killed without mercy. Qiu Zilan took the soul-breaking knife and asked, does it apply to people as well? Wang Qiushu nodded. Anyway, remember, your sister is behind you. If you get into trouble because of your soft heart, your sister can't escape either. Qiu Zilan nodded firmly. I understand. Wang Qiushu looked at him. I'm ready. He took out the transformation needle and pierced Wang Qiushu's hand. This was exchanged yesterday, and now he could use it just to see the effect. When the transformation needle pierced Wang Qiushu's hand, the black liquid inside automatically entered Wang Qiushu's body without him having to push the syringe. The next second, Wang Qiushu's eyes turned red, and he had become a zombie. Qiu Zilan and her sister looked at this scene, not knowing what to say. He asked directly, how does it feel? Wang Qiushu took off the transformation needle and moved his arm. It feels the same as before, and my body seems to be full of strength now. He nodded. What did you feel when the needle was inserted? Wang Qiushu thought about it. Nothing, not even pain, and then I transformed. He breathed a sigh of relief. That's good. Hurry up. Hearing this, Wang Qiushu directly picked up the hammer of the earth and walked to the security net and jumped down. Qiu Zilan's heart skipped a beat when she saw that scene. She subconsciously took a look, and after seeing Wang Qiushu stretching her arms to the ground, she remembered that she had such an ability and was relieved immediately. Qiu Zilan suddenly asked, did the beautiful sister turn into a zombie just now? Qiu Zilan nodded. Qiu Zilan looked at him with horror. Chapter 164. First test, instant explosion. He ignored the two sisters and switched directly to Wang Qiushu's perspective. This place was unfamiliar to them, so they had to be extra careful, and he could just act as another pair of eyes for Wang Qiushu, helping Wang Qiushu pay attention to some subtle places. Moreover, with the previous experience of Daewoo, they had to be more careful. Who knows, will there really be invisible zombies? After Wang Qiushu landed, he walked forward. He reminded, did you forget to change clothes? Wang Qiushu took a look and changed into another look. It was still the pure girl in the plain long skirt, but her face was completely different. Wang Qiushu thought about it. What a pity, in this case, I can't see the stockings inside. She wore stockings today specifically to fulfill her promise yesterday. He swallowed his saliva. Forget it, there will be plenty of opportunities in the future. Let's clear the shopping mall first and see how strong the level 3 zombies are. By the way, pay attention to whether there is anything wrong along the way. Wang Qiushu nodded and walked forward with the hammer of the earth. The conversation between the two of them was conducted in their minds, so they did not speak. Qiu Zilan looked at him sitting there with a dull look, thought for a while, and walked out with Zillion. After a while, there was a burst of ha sounds from outside, and there were stomping sounds from time to time. He thought about it, and thought that it should be Zillion teaching her sister Kung Fu. Wang Qiushu walked all the way, and when the ordinary zombies on the road saw her, their bodies almost shook like a sieve. Naturally, she would not let them go, and she would hit them one by one, and get them done directly. After the hammer of the earth was upgraded, the probability became higher, so the frequency of triggering a critical hit was also higher. What's more, the hammer of the earth became much larger, and the hitting area naturally became larger. With one hammer, no zombie could withstand it. Soon, she walked outside the shopping mall. This shopping mall consists of multiple buildings, with supermarkets, clothing stores, milk tea shops, and cinemas. Outside the door is a large open space, just like a square. Needless to say, he immediately started scanning. There are more than 100 zombies in this shopping mall, including 5 level 2 zombies in the cinema, 2 level 2 zombies in the supermarket, and the rest are some level 1 zombies and ordinary zombies. Wang Qiushu breathed a sigh of relief. It seems that there are no level 3 zombies here. But I didn't expect that there were 5 level 2 zombies in the cinema. It seems that I shouldn't go to places where people gather. He agreed. Well, the scan result is like this. Anyway, you should be careful. Wang Qiushu stepped forward. However, she did not walk directly into those buildings, but walked to a small shop in the corner. This kind of small shop is actually not a building, but a shed made of stainless steel plates. There are staff inside, selling some snacks such as grilled skewers and fried chicken, as well as milk tea. It is definitely small but complete, and you can always find what you like to eat. Moreover, the cost of such a shop is not high, but the profit is definitely not low. Watching Wang Qiushu approaching step by step, the three zombies in the milk tea shop were trembling. Wang Qiushu took a look at the things inside, with a look of disappointment. The milk tea is gone, and the fried chicken is gone. He was speechless. It's been so long, how could it still be there? Wang Qiushu sighed. In this case, then you can go on the road with them, as a tribute to my lost youth. 3 hammers. The 3 trembling zombies fell down together. Wang Qiushu looked at the food that had rotted, and turned black into a pile. Do you think we can still eat fried chicken in the future? He replied. People have nothing to eat. How can anyone raise chickens? Even if wild chickens can survive, they still need to drink water, so I guess there are only zombie chickens. Wang Qiushu sighed. It's a pity that zombies can't eat it. Otherwise, if there is a zombie chicken as big as a big fish, how long can we eat it? He shook his head and urged, don't daydream, or hurry up. If there is such a big chicken, it must be difficult to deal with. Wang Qiushu stepped forward. No matter how difficult it is, I will take care of it with 1 hammer. I'm not afraid. Along the way, some ordinary zombies in the square were all dealt with by Wang Qiushu. Next, she directly turned on the horizontal push mode. The main reason is that the level of these zombies is too low. Facing her, let alone fighting back, she can't even run away. She can only tremble and watch the hammer fall on her head. However, Wang Qiushu was selective in her actions, only killing ordinary zombies and level 1 zombies, and she avoided supermarkets and cinemas. The main reason was that it took a lot of time to clear all the way. Although she had level suppression, it was not so effective against level 2 zombies. In addition, level 2 zombies were not so easy to kill, and it took some time. Therefore, she decided to clear these obstacles first. In this way, the next time she came, she could directly deal with the remaining level 2 zombies. After killing for a while, he reminded, there is still 1 minute, it's time to come back. Wang Qiushu nodded, holding the hammer handle tightly with both hands, and smashed it on the head of the level 1 zombie in front of him. With a bang, the entire upper body of the zombie exploded directly, and the broken limbs and fragments were splashed everywhere, not to mention the black liquid. Wang Qiushu smiled, obviously very satisfied with this blow, and then turned around and walked back quickly. He asked, was that just a sudden burst? Wang Qiushu replied, yes, and it's not the whole body's strength, just a little bit. It seems that the effect is really good. He agreed, indeed, although the level 1 zombie does not have a body of iron and steel, it is very good to smash the upper body into pieces with 1 hammer. However, your burst will eventually affect the time of transformation, so you should walk faster. Not long after, Wang Qiushu returned to where they were. Qiushu heard the movement and hurried in, only to find a familiar stranger climbing in through the window. She subconsciously stepped forward with the soul-breaking sword, but then remembered that Wang Qiushu seemed to be like this when they first met, so she didn't do anything. Qiushu followed in. Huh, isn't this the zombie sister riding a bicycle? How come she is here? After Wang Qiushu landed, he smiled and said, what? Can't you recognize me after changing my appearance? Qiushu looked at Wang Qiushu in surprise, as if she was looking at something extraordinary. When Qiushu heard Wang Qiushu's voice, she immediately breathed a sigh of relief and put down the knife. Chapter 165 Transformation Needle Experiment. Wang Qiushu looked at Qiushu. How is it, sister? Do you look good now? Qiushu nodded repeatedly. Qiushu asked, why did you change your appearance after going out for a while? Wang Qiushu changed back to her original appearance. This is the characteristic of my equipment. I can change my appearance at will. It is mainly to avoid others recognizing me. After all, it is still very scary to be able to switch between living people and zombies at will. Qiushu nodded. Wang Qiushu looked at him again. Why don't you help me to cancel the transformation? I don't want to lie down again, because I'm tired. He pointed to the bed next to him. You lie there for a while, the time will be up soon. Wang Qiushu lay down on it. After a while, the red in her eyes faded, and she turned back to the appearance of a living person. Qiushu walked up, and said in surprise, beautiful sister has changed back again, it's amazing. Qiushu looked at Wang Qiushu, then at him, and there was a burst of surprise in her eyes. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, it would be really hard to accept such a thing. Even though she knew it before, she still felt greatly shocked now. She thought of the needle again. Doesn't that mean that, as long as the needle is injected, she can turn into a zombie? He looked at Wang Qiushu at this time. How do you feel now? Wang Qiushu was lying on the bed and said weakly, I feel so tired now. I have no strength in my body. I have forgotten how long it has been since I felt like this. Before, she had only dealt with some simple zombies, and when dealing with level 3 zombies, she didn't do much. So, Wang Qiushu really hadn't felt exhausted for a long time. He then asked, besides feeling weak all over, do you have any other feelings? Although this transformation needle was produced by the system, and Wang Qiushu also transformed and released smoothly, he still wanted to see if there were any side effects, so as not to regret it if something really happened. Wang Qiushu closed his eyes and felt it carefully. No, it's the same as before. There should be no problem, right? He nodded. Since you don't feel anything, there should be no problem. I just want to confirm it. Wang Qiushu struggled to get up from the bed. You are using me as a guinea pig again. Wait, I'm so tired that I lie down. How come you are fine? He chuckled. Have you forgotten that I have taken a lot of powerful pills? So, I have much more physical strength than you. Even if you are tired and lie down, I still have a little physical strength, not to the extent of exhaustion. Wang Qiushu lay back directly. It's so unfair. I want to take powerful pills too. He smiled. Let's talk about this later. Qiushu suddenly asked at this time. As long as you take that injection, can you become a zombie? Qiushu grabbed Qiushu's hand tightly, shaking her head repeatedly, her eyes full of begging. Qiushu touched Qiushu's head and said, Zillion, you can still turn back, even if you become a zombie. Isn't that what Sister Qiushu did? Qiushu fell silent. Qiushu looked at him again. He thought about it and nodded. Qiushu said again, then help me inject it. I also want to kill zombies and become stronger. I want to kill them, asked Man, and avenge my grandfather. He asked seriously, do you know what that means? Qiushu's heart skipped a beat. What does it mean? Wang Qiushu interrupted. It means that you will have a special connection with him. Moreover, it is possible that you will be unconscious in the early stage, and your body will only be controlled by him. At that time, I also had to upgrade to level 2 to control my body. From ordinary zombies to level 2, at least 110 zombies must be killed, which will be a very long time. He continued, moreover, it is not certain whether this method is harmful to the human body. At the beginning, she and I only took this path because we had no choice, and you still have a sister to take care of. If something happens to you, your sister will really have no relatives. Hearing this, Qiushu grabbed Qiushu tightly again. Qiushu sighed, touched Qiushu's head, and said nothing. He continued to observe Wang Qiushu. Wang Qiushu blushed when he was stared at. Why are you staring at me? He replied, to see if you have any abnormalities. If there are any side effects and you don't notice them in time, it will be troublesome. Wang Qiushu looked at him fiercely. If I become a zombie, I will bite you first. Hearing this, Qiushu stepped back several steps. He smiled and said, look, she was scared. Wang Qiushu opened his mouth, but didn't say anything else. Otherwise Zillion would really be scared to tears. After a while, Wang Qiushu's physical strength was finally completely restored, and he became lively and energetic. He looked at the time. Well, the time required for recovery is still the same as before. It seems that there should be no problem now. Wang Qiushu moved his hands and feet. I don't think it's a big deal. Bring the needle. I'll go and get rid of the level 2 zombies inside, and then we can start shopping. He nodded and took out a transformation needle. In fact, this was naturally what he exchanged, just for show. Wang Qiushu took the transformation needle and was about to inject it, but was stopped by Qiushu. Why didn't he inject it himself, but let you take unknown risks and turn into a zombie to fight? Did he force you? Wang Qiushu was a little bit unresponsive for a while, but she still said, no, I volunteered. Qiushu looked at Wang Qiushu with a look of disappointment. Have you been deceived by him? As a man, he actually had the nerve to hide here and let you fight? Wang Qiushu laughed and looked at him. Did you hear that? He sighed and spread his hands. What's there to be embarrassed about? I'm her little white face. Qi Zilan looked at him, then at Wang Qiushu, and her lungs were about to explode. Qi Zilan looked at him with an even more unfriendly look. Wang Qiushu took the transformation needle from Qi Zilan with a smile. Actually, he can't turn into a zombie, so I have to do it. Besides, we are working together, so there is nothing to worry about. Qi Zilan shook her head, obviously not believing it. How do you know he can't turn into a zombie? Have you injected him? Maybe he has been lying to you from the beginning. He was speechless. Wang Qiushu blinked his big eyes. I believe him. After saying that, he stabbed his hand directly. Qi Zilan didn't have time to stop him, and Wang Qiushu turned into a zombie in the next second. Wang Qiushu looked at Qi Zilan and smiled. Well, there are some things I can't tell you now, but you will know later. By the way, remember to help me protect him. Chapter 166 The Disappearing Zombies. Qi Zilan watched Wang Qiushu jump out of the window and secretly sighed in her heart. It turns out that women in love have negative IQs, and they are willing to risk their lives and fight zombies for him. She glanced at Li Wending again, pulled Qi Zilan and walked out. He shrugged his shoulders and said nothing. Wang Qiushu smiled as he walked towards the shopping mall. Are you really not going to explain? He said helplessly. If I have to explain, wouldn't we have to tell her all our cards? We've only known each other for a few days, so forget it. Wang Qiushu nodded in agreement, and then asked, does your trick count as playing hard to get? He was stunned for a moment. What? How can it be playing hard to get? Wang Qiushu explained. You first deliberately let her misunderstand you and leave a bad impression. Then slowly let her know the truth, change her opinion of you, and conquer her step by step. Isn't this playing hard to get? He was speechless. What the hell are you thinking? I'm not as complicated as you think. It's just that there is no need and I don't want to explain so much. And even if I explain, she may not believe it. I can't really stab myself and turn into a zombie to prove it to her. I'm not you, and I can't turn back after turning into a zombie. Wang Qiushu thought for a while. That's right, only I and you know about the transformation. After all, she is not an auxiliary, and it is indeed difficult for her to understand and accept it. While the two were talking, Wang Qiushu had already arrived outside the shopping mall. Now, there were no zombies to be seen except for the corpses on the ground. Wang Qiushu swung the hammer of the earth. Where should we start next? He said directly. Of course, we should start with the simple ones. Let's clean up the supermarket first. Wang Qiushu nodded and walked towards the supermarket. Pushing open the glass door of the supermarket, it was a mess inside. Various goods were scattered on the ground. Black liquid could be seen on the ground and walls, but it was no longer possible to tell whether it was blood or condensed from the zombie virus. Behind the counter, there was a cashier zombie. She looked at Wang Qiushu who came in, her body trembling slightly, much better than the previous low-level zombies. Wang Qiushu glanced at the cashier zombie, continued to walk forward, and finally found another level 2 zombie in a corner. It was a waiter zombie, with an abnormally fat body. At first glance, it was a very tough player. The waiter squatted in the corner, with his back to Wang Qiushu, trembling. Wang Qiushu was too lazy to say more. Since the other party had given up resistance, it was better to start early. The hammer of the earth fell. With a bang, the head of the waiter zombie exploded directly. Wang Qiushu's face was happy. I'm lucky. I actually triggered a fatal blow right away. I thought it would take some effort. He nodded. It just stained the snacks next to it. There are pieces of meat and black liquid on them. Wang Qiushu waved his hand. Will it be cleaned when the time comes? By the way, if you didn't tell me, I wouldn't have noticed that this new mask works well and has no smell at all. After such a long beating, he was no longer surprised by such a small scene. And it's not like he had eaten such snacks before. It's just that the bag was dirty and it didn't contaminate the inside. He replied, of course, this is an upgradable D-level mask, so the effect is of course good. Wang Qiushu nodded and then dragged the corpse of the waiter zombie out. When he came to the counter, he threw the corpse directly on it. The cashier zombie was completely stunned. He used his claws to pry open the counter and took out all the money inside. Wang Qiushu laughed out loud. He was speechless. You really have a bad taste. Wang Qiushu looked at the cashier zombie and shook his head. The cashier zombie looked at the corpse on the counter and then at Wang Qiushu. A red light flashed in his eyes. He forced himself to resist the discomfort in his body and slashed at Wang Qiushu with his claws. Wang Qiushu did not dodge or avoid. The hammer of the earth hit the opponent's head. With a bang, the waiter zombie turned out to have a body of iron and steel. No wonder he dared to fight back. The claws slashed Wang Qiushu's body, but still did not cause any damage. The cashier zombie was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect that there was not even a scratch, and Wang Qiushu didn't look like he had a body of iron and steel. Wang Qiushu seized the opportunity and smashed it down continuously. Finally, when the fifth hammer hit, it triggered a fatal blow. The cashier zombie was confused, and his whole head exploded. Wang Qiushu stopped. It seems that the probability of 40% is still a bit low. If it is 100%, then there is no need to go through so much trouble. He smiled and said, maybe she wants to blow her head off because she can't figure out why she didn't scratch you. Wang Qiushu snorted coldly and walked out. In the projection room of the cinema, a zombie was operating the machine, seemingly unable to figure out why these machines were not working. Suddenly, his body shook, and then he slowly turned around, only to see a huge hammer smashing over. With a bang, the zombie was smashed directly against the wall. Wang Qiushu stepped forward and smashed it, and solved the zombie. It's really strange that he can get a level 2 zombie by hiding in the projection room. He replied, maybe he is used to slacking off at work, and he sneaks out from time to time to find something to eat, and hides here when he has something to do. Wang Qiushu nodded in agreement, then smashed the glass of the projection room, and jumped into the cinema below. Due to the power outage, the movie had not been playing for a long time. The curtain was still hanging, covered with dust. There were two zombies, a man and a woman, sitting together in the cinema, with their heads leaning against each other, and their faces could not be seen. Not far away sat a zombie, who did not look at the curtain, but just stared at the two zombies. He smiled and said, is this a live broadcast, or is it that the zombie cannot be obtained, so it can only watch from the side? Wang Qiushu frowned. Strange, shouldn't there be 4 here? Now it seems that there are only 3, where is the other one? Hearing this, he started scanning directly. Wang Qiushu followed the red dot on the scan, and looked straight ahead. There was only a curtain there, and no trace of the zombie. He smiled. Fortunately we have a scan. Fortunately he has not reached level 3, otherwise he might really be like the big fish. Wang Qiushu was also relieved. What should we do now? He said, of course, we should deal with the others first. This one can't escape. And I think his strength should be very average, otherwise he wouldn't have to hide. Wang Qiushu nodded. Chapter 167. Doglicker must die. Since it is not a good thing to force a couple to break up, Wang Qiushu decided to get rid of the bystander first. She stretched out her arm and swung the hammer of the earth at the lone zombie. I don't know if you are in a love triangle, but I hate this kind of bloody plot the most. Unexpectedly, the zombie had his back to Wang Qiushu, but he seemed to be on guard all the time, and actually dodged to the side the moment the hammer of the earth fell. With a bang, the cushion on the seat was cushioned, but it was still dented. Wang Qiushu looked at the zombie standing in the aisle, and was puzzled for a moment. I didn't expect it to be a speed type. He said in a deep voice. Not only that, he doesn't seem to be affected by your breath, so he can dodge at the critical moment. At this time, the two zombie lovers also stood up, and the 3 of them looked at Wang Qiushu together. Wang Qiushu's face became solemn, and he felt that something was wrong. He felt it and reminded, it seems that this love triangle is not simple. It actually formed something like a combination skill, which can compete with the breath of your level 3 zombie. I just don't know if their strength will be improved accordingly. No wonder they say that the triangle is the most stable shape. After his reminder, Wang Qiushu immediately felt that something was wrong. No wonder she felt that she was not facing 3 level 2 zombies, but facing an opponent of similar strength. She asked directly, what should we do now? He glanced at the 3 zombies. Since they have a combination skill, of course we should defeat them one by one. Let's start with the female zombie. Wang Qiuyushu was about to rush towards the lone zombie, but stopped when he heard that there is a male zombie next to the female zombie. It's impossible to kill her. I thought you were going to kill the lone zombie first. After all, he is far away, and the other 2 will not have time to rescue him, and they may not necessarily rescue him. He responded, if you attack a lone zombie, the other 2 will definitely attack you at the same time, and then you will be attacked from both sides. Since they have a combination skill, they will definitely not let one of them die. Wang Qiuyushu was puzzled. Then if I attack the female zombie, I will also be attacked from both sides. What's the difference? Besides, I think the success rate of attacking a lone zombie is a little higher. He had to explain, no matter whether the lone zombie is a bootlegger or not, when you attack the female zombie, he will definitely come to rescue you. At the same time, the female zombie and the male zombie next to him will also block or attack you. However, the lone zombie is a certain distance away from that side. At that time, you only need to turn your arm, and the earth hammer that was originally attacking the female zombie will fall on the lone zombie. And he was rushing forward at that time. Even if he found it, he would not have time to turn or dodge immediately. Wang Qiuyushu nodded. I understand. It turned out to be a feint to the east and attack in the west. You should have said it earlier. He thought for a while. If you had just done what I said just now, I only needed to say a few words and swing the hammer according to my words. Now I explain to you, and then I say a lot. Wang Qiuyushu shook his head and rushed out directly. While rushing forward, he stretched out his arm and smashed the earth hammer at the female zombie. Sure enough, the female zombie retreated quickly, and the male zombie next to him rushed to Wang Qiuyushu from the side. The speed zombies on the other side were also rushing towards Wang Qiuyushu, but they looked more like they wanted to stop Wang Qiuyushu from attacking further. Wang Qiuyushu suddenly turned her body at this time, and the earth hammer that was originally attacking the female zombie changed direction and went directly towards the speed zombie. The speed zombie was shocked and wanted to hide to the side. However, because his speed was too fast and his momentum was too strong, he didn't have time to dodge at all and just turned his body to the side. At the same time, Wang Qiuyushu's muscles tensed and a burst of power burst out of his body and passed to the earth hammer. With a bang, the speed zombie was smashed and flew out, hitting the wall, and half of his body was gone. The black liquid flowed down the wall, and his breath was even weaker. At this time, the male zombie also attacked Wang Qiuyushu, and his claws scratched Wang Qiuyushu's throat. Wang Qiuyushu did not dodge, but looked at the male zombie coldly, and then kicked him hard. At the moment of kicking, her body suddenly adjusted slightly unconsciously. The kick that could have been blocked or dodged by the male zombie strangely kicked the male zombie. The male zombie was kicked away with a confused look on his face, his eyes full of disbelief. Is this the strength of a level 3 zombie? Wang Qiuyushu also looked at her leg in surprise, and then asked, you controlled my body just now. This kick is really powerful. She is very clear about her own strength, and knows that it is impossible for her to kick so perfectly. He replied, although I'm a bit stronger than you, I didn't control your body just now. Besides, if I want to take over, I have to take over the whole body, not just one leg. The kick just now should be the work of the shoes, correcting your posture, and delivering a perfect blow. Wang Qiuyushu nodded. It seems that I have to use my legs more in the future. It feels so good to kick the opponent away with one kick. He shook his head. After all, the power of the kick is still small. It's just a kick, and it can't actually hurt the opponent. Sure enough, the male zombie stood up again soon, and it didn't look like he was seriously injured. Wang Qiuyushu looked at the injured speed zombie again, but found that it was no longer there, so she rushed over there. When she was almost there, she saw that the speed zombie was dragging half of its body on the ground, and the direction of the crawling was exactly the direction where the female zombie was. He couldn't help but sigh. The liquor is really invincible. Wang Qiuyushu smashed down with a hammer. Maybe it should be called affection. The male and female zombies originally wanted to take advantage of Wang Qiuyushu's rush over to launch a sneak attack, but remembering Wang Qiuyushu's previous feint to the east and attack in the west, they looked at each other and suddenly ran out together. The speed type zombie lying on the ground stretched out his hand and watched the female zombie walk away, his face full of despair. Since the speed type zombie was not strengthened, Wan Qiushu killed him with 2 hammers. At this time, the 2 zombies had disappeared. Wan Qiushu was considering whether to chase him out. After all, the previous scan showed that there should be a zombie hiding here. He opened the scan at the right time and found that there was not a single zombie in the cinema. Wan Qiushu was stunned when he looked at the results of the scan. What's going on? Chapter 168 Invisible Zombie. Wan Qiushu recalled that she had never seen the suspected invisible zombie since she came here, let alone saw him running away. So she asked directly, did I let him run away when I wasn't paying attention just now? But how come there was no movement at all? He recalled that Wan Qiushu had not been paying attention to the situation in the cinema, but as another pair of eyes, he was naturally watching it all the time. In addition to eyes, people also have ears, but not only did they not see anything, they didn't hear anything. He shook his head. I didn't notice it either. It seems that the zombie is really something. Wan Qiushu asked again, what should we do now? He remembered the red dots he had just scanned. The 2 walking together must be the pair of zombies, and the other one is the invisible zombie. Let's go and get rid of that pair first. Wan Qiushu rushed out directly after hearing this. Although this shopping mall is not big, the time is too short, and the 2 zombies did not go far. When Wan Qiushu walked out, the 2 of them were running wildly on the road, and they could still see their bodies shaking slightly while running. He smiled and said, it seems that one of them is missing. Their triangle has been destroyed, and they can't resist your breath at all. Wan Qiushu also noticed this and sped up. When she was almost there, she stretched out her arm and smashed the female zombie, ready to get rid of one first. Unexpectedly, hearing the sound of wind coming from behind, the male zombie actually jumped up and knocked the female zombie out. The next second, the male zombie was also smashed out by the hammer of the earth. After the female zombie got up from the ground, she didn't even look at the male zombie and continued to run forward tremblingly. He couldn't help but sigh. TSK, this female zombie must have been very beautiful before. Even after her death, there are still 2 men willing to sacrifice for her. Wan Qiushu took the opportunity to rush forward and got rid of the male zombie. It is also possible that both of them have been poor, so they are so willing to sacrifice. As a result, the female zombie didn't even look at them, let alone turn back to save them. He laughed. That's what they deserve. They don't even know who they like. Wan Qiushu continued to chase forward and soon got rid of the female zombie. Then, she began to walk back. It's been a while. Do you think the zombie has left? He thought for a moment. It's unlikely. First, there are corpses everywhere, and if you don't eat them, it will be a bargain for him. Second, all the zombies there are dead, and he is the only one. As a level 2 zombie, combined with his ability, he only needs to wait there to get a steady supply of food. On the contrary, if he runs to other places, he might be killed by other zombies, which is inconsistent with his cautious character. Wan Qiushu asked again, but he can't be sure whether we will go back. What if we go back, won't he be dead? He smiled. You didn't attack him just now, so it is very likely that he doesn't know that you have discovered his existence. In this case, whether it is hiding here and relying on your breath for protection, or hiding until you leave, it is a good choice. Wan Qiushu nodded. Since he doesn't know, that means that, even if we walk up to him later, he will still think he is invisible, and we can't see him. He replied, yes, that's it. Wan Qiushu smiled and said, at this time, as long as we hit him unexpectedly, he will be finished. He hurriedly said, don't kill him later, just break his hands and feet. If that doesn't work, just smash his lower body. Wan Qiushu asked curiously, why? He explained, we have killed hundreds of zombies, not 1,000. We have seen zombies with speed and claws, but this kind of invisible zombie is the first time. I don't know if it has something to do with the special environment of the cinema. First, cripple him. In the future, whether it is to upgrade him and then kill him to obtain his abilities, or to let low-level assistants obtain his abilities, it will be a good choice. Wan Qiushu nodded. Okay, let's find him first. When Wang Qiushu returned to the shopping mall, he turned on the scan directly. The two of them said hi at the same time. Then, Wang Qiushu walked over to the place where the scan was. It was a shop at the edge of the square, but the scan showed that the zombie was hiding by the wall, a very obvious red dot. Wang Qiushu pretended to be calm and walked along the wall, passing by the zombie until she reached the end, but she didn't find any trace of the zombie. She couldn't help but say, this ability is really amazing. It can be said to be invincible in the same level. If it weren't for the scan, I wouldn't have noticed that there was a zombie hiding there. If I hide first and then launch a sneak attack, no zombie can stop it. He nodded. It's just another version of the invisible cloth. It's a pity that I can't transform into a zombie. Otherwise I can get this ability. Wang Qiushu looked alert. What do you want to be invisible for? He said seriously. Of course it's used to kill zombies. Otherwise what else can I do? Wang Qiushu snorted coldly and turned around and walked back. When she walked to the zombie, she smashed it with a hammer. With a bang, the hammer of the earth gave a touch that was obviously different from smashing the wall. However, with just this hammer, the zombie still didn't show up. After Wang Qiushu took the hammer away, the zombie walked forward even faster. Wang Qiushu frowned. I thought I could beat him out with this attack, but it didn't work. He breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, his attack is just a trick, but it actually exists. If it can blend into the environment like a big fish, it will be difficult to deal with. Wang Qiushu chased after him and asked, do you still want to keep it? If so, its practicality will be reduced a lot. He said quickly, of course I have to keep it. It's obvious that it has no lethality. I'll kill it when I have a better choice later. Wang Qiushu nodded and hammered at the zombie along the scan. Not long after, a pool of black liquid appeared on the ground, and the zombie also took shape. It looked like an ordinary zombie, and it didn't have the common characteristics. No wonder it could only run away. It was probably because it usually relied on picking up corpses to get to level 2. Wang Qiushu smashed it again, breaking the zombie's hands and feet, leaving only the body and head. Chapter 169 Prejudice. He asked Wang Qiushu to find a place to hide in the shopping mall, and then he lifted his transformation. The zombies in the shopping mall were all cleared, and Wang Qiushu still had some physical strength. With her equipment, unless she encountered zombies above level 3, she could at least hold on until they arrived. Then he walked out the door. Qiushu Zillion was indeed teaching Qiushu Zillion Kung Fu. Although Qiushu Zillion didn't have much strength when fighting, her movements were still very methodical. Seeing him suddenly come out, Qiushu Zillion couldn't help but ask, what's wrong? He took out 2D level masks and handed them over. Wang Qiushu is waiting for us over there. Let's go over now. Wear this mask later, because the use time limit is 10 minutes, and you have to wait an hour after it ends before you can use it again. Qiushu Zillion took the mask and handed one to Qiushu Zillion, then asked, is it okay for her to be alone over there? Why don't you come back first? He stepped forward. It doesn't matter. She is safe now. It's too troublesome to come back. We can just go over now. Qiushu Zillion heard this, pulled Qiushu Zillion and followed. They went downstairs and walked along the place where Wang Qiushu passed and took the 3 carts over at the same time. After encountering the body, he put the juicer directly on the ground and operated it skillfully. However, before putting the body in, he thought about it and looked at Qiushu Zillion. Why don't you take her to Wang Qiushu first? After all, the scene that follows may not be suitable for children to watch. Although Qiushu Zillion was there when the high-speed rail zombies were squeezed into juice, there was only one of them, and it was not as good as the corpses everywhere now. Qiushu Zillion glanced at him, then at Qiushu Zillion. Is it okay for you to be here alone? He shook his head. No problem. If there is any movement, I will run away at the first time. Qiushu Zillion thought for a while. Forget it. I'll just watch here, and I'll cover Zillion's eyes later. He shrugged his shoulders. It's up to you. By the way, it's best to wear a mask. After that, he began to move the body into the juicer. Qiushu Zillion quickly covered Qiushu Zillion's eyes and put a mask on her at the same time. Qiushu Zillion couldn't get away and finally took off the mask. I don't want that bad guy's stuff. Qiushu Zillion looked at him embarrassedly and then picked up the mask. In fact, she didn't know how to explain the whole thing to Zillion. What's more, the world of children is very simple. There is only right and wrong, and there is no such complicated middle part. Therefore, when Zillion determined that he was the one who killed her grandfather, it was difficult for others to explain it to her clearly. Maybe when she grows up, she will understand it. He didn't care at all and started to squeeze the juice. After a while, the juicer stopped and he opened the lid. There was a small black object inside. He picked it up and put it in the glass box and merged it with the previous zombie virus. Then, he continued to move the body. At this time, Qiu Zillion retched. But because she was too short, Qiu Zillion didn't see it. Then, she pried Qiu Zillion's hand open, but couldn't pry it open. So she squatted down and groped on the ground. Qiu Zillion finally reacted. "What are you looking for?" Qiu Zillion retched again and answered with a crying voice, "Where is my mask? Didn't I throw it on the ground just now?" Qiu Zillion handed the mask over unhappily. "I picked it up for you. Didn't you just say you didn't want to wear it?" Qiu Zillion's outstretched hand stopped. "Humph, if you don't want to wear it, then don't wear it." While the two were chatting, the juicer stopped again. He reminded, "It's time to open the lid. If you don't want to wear a mask, then stop breathing. Although it doesn't work much, it can reduce the smell you inhale." Qiu Zillion took the mask and put it on, and a dull voice came out. "He must have guessed that I wouldn't wear it, so he gave me a mask and wanted to pretend to be a good person. I can't do what he wants. He stuffed another corpse into the juicer. From you, I saw 2 words, so fragrant." At this time, Wang Qiushu's voice came over. "What's so fragrant?" He repeated what happened just now, and Wang Qiushu laughed directly. Qiu Zillion made a very fierce expression. "It's not like what he said." Wang Qiushu touched her hair. "Well, sister believes you." Qiu Zillion looked at her. "Did you stay there after the transformation just now?" Wang Qiushu nodded. "Yes, what's wrong?" Qiu Zillion looked at him again. "Do you know that this is very dangerous? She has no strength left after the transformation. What should she do if she encounters zombies?" He turned his head and looked at Qiu Zillion helplessly. Wang Qiushu quickly explained, "It's not like that. If I end the transformation early, my physical strength will not be exhausted, and I still have the ability to protect myself." Qiu Zillion said angrily, "What if I encounter a high-level zombie?" Wang Qiushu thought for a while. "It shouldn't be." Qiu Zillion was about to say something, but he said first, "With the equipment she has, she doesn't have to be afraid, even if she encounters a high-level zombie. If it is the same situation, the combined survival rate of the few of us is lower than hers." Qiu Zillion was not convinced. She has no strength left and can only passively take the beating. How could her survival rate be higher than ours? Wang Qiushu quickly stood between the two of them and made a stop gesture. "Stop arguing." Then, she looked at Qiu Zillion again. "You just joined us. You are not used to it yet. You will get used to it in the future. In fact, he didn't put me in danger as you said. I was indeed very safe just now." He sighed and went back to squeeze the corpse. Seeing him like this, Qiu Zillion didn't want to argue anymore. However, she still whispered to Wang Qiushu, "It is said that a woman in love has an IQ of 0, but I think yours has become negative. I can't understand why he clearly put you in a dangerous situation just now, but you still wanted to speak for him." Wang Qiushu smiled and pointed at the dark skirt on her body. "Did you see this? He upgraded it for me a long time ago, and I can withstand the attacks of zombies below level 3. My shoes have also been upgraded, so I can resist and run now." Look at him again. He himself is reluctant to upgrade a set of protective gear because he feels he is always safe, so there is no need. Qiu Zillion curled her lips. He has been hiding in a safe place and he doesn't have to fight for his life, so of course he is safe. Besides, I have him protected now. Wang Qiushu smiled. "Before you came, he had no one to protect him, and an accident was enough to be fatal." Qiu Zillion stopped talking immediately. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 170. Encountering a dog on the return trip. They continued to move forward while cleaning up the bodies. After a while, they finally arrived at the shopping mall. The invisible zombie was still lying there, with no hands or feet, so he naturally couldn't escape. However, the zombie's vitality was tenacious, and even with such serious injuries, he still didn't die. Moreover, part of his body was invisible, as if he wanted to hide again, to avoid being hunted down. Kyuhyuzelin looked at the zombie curiously. "Why don't you kill him?" Wan Kyushu smiled and said, "This zombie has an invisible ability, which is quite special, so keep it first. Maybe you can still use it when you become a zombie in the future." Kyuhyuzelin nodded and said nothing more. The invisible zombie felt someone nearby, and the breath on his body suddenly burst out. Kyuhyuzelin suddenly felt uncomfortable and almost couldn't breathe, so he quickly blocked in front of Kyuhyuzelin. He glanced at Wan Kyushu. Wan Kyushu understood and walked to the side of the invisible zombie. Both of them were level 3, and they were too familiar with the pressure of this kind of aura, or they had experienced it too many times, so they were not affected at all. The invisible zombie suddenly saw a woman appear in front of him, and he became more excited, making a series of ho-ho sounds. If his hands and feet had not been broken, he would have pounced on Wan Kyushu and bit her. Wan Kyushu blinked her big eyes. "I almost forgot that I'm not a zombie now, and my appearance has changed. No wonder you can't recognize me." Then, she swung the hammer of the earth. "You should be very familiar with this hammer." A trace of fear flashed in the eyes of the invisible zombie. He was not familiar with this hammer, because its appearance had changed. However, he now had a deep fear of hammer-shaped objects. After all, he became what he is now, because of the hammer. The hammer of the earth smashed down violently. Wan Kyushu said fiercely, "You dare to release your breath to scare us, right?" The breath of the invisible zombie paused for a moment, and Kyuhyuzelin immediately felt much more comfortable. She quickly turned around and looked at Kyuhyuzelin. "How are you? Are you okay?" Kyuhyuzelin shook her head. "No." Wan Kyushu smashed again until the invisible zombie dared not release any breath, and then stopped. The invisible zombie was constantly flowing out of its mouth with black liquid, and it looked like it was dying. Kyuhyuzelin stepped forward and asked, "You didn't smash him to death, did you?" Wan Kyushu waved his hand. "No, don't worry. This is a level 2 zombie, and I haven't transformed, so it's impossible for me to smash him to death." Kyuhyuzelin nodded when she heard it. Wan Kyushu looked at him who was squeezing juice and said, "You are busy outside. We will go into shop first. Call us if there is anything." He waved his hand. Go. I can handle it by myself." Wan Kyushu took Kyuhyuzelin and her sister and walked in excitedly. What could be more fun than shopping in a mall? Kyuhyuzelin looked back at him. Is it really okay to leave him here alone? Apart from anything else, the invisible zombie just now was very scary, and its breath alone could make her breathless. Wan Kyushu waved his hand. "There are no zombies around here. It's very safe. Don't worry. By the way, I just saw a clothing store with a lot of clothes. Let's go and have a look." Kyuhyuzelin nodded when she heard it. Kyuhyuzelin looked around curiously. This was her first time out since the doomsday. Although she couldn't see any living people, it was better than staying at home all the time. Until he cleaned up all the corpses, Wan Kyushu and the others still didn't come out. He shook his head and started to loot things directly, moving some important things like food to the cart first. After filling all 3 carts, he found a rope to tie up the invisible zombie, and one end of the rope was connected to the cart, so that he could just drag it back when the time came. After everything was done, he shouted directly, "Wan Kyushu, it's time to go back." After a while, Wan Kyushu poked her head out from above wearing a new dress. "Okay, I'll be right there." Not long after, the 3 of them came down with large and small bags, each with a smile on their face. Fortunately, the cart was not very full, so it would be fine as long as these things were placed on the top. So, they started to walk back. Since it was safer on the way back, Kyuhyuzelin walked in front. He and Kyuhyuzelin were in the middle, and Wan Kyushu was at the back to cover the rear. As they walked, Kyuhyuzelin suddenly asked, "Sister, will we come back later?" Qiuzilan looked back at him after hearing this. He nodded. Of course I'm coming. It took a lot of effort to kill the zombies, so of course I have to empty this shopping mall. Anyway, no matter whether it was useful or not, they would move everything back first. After all, these things would be hard to find in the future. Qiuzilan's steps became lighter after hearing this. Wang Qiushu was walking at the end, pulling the cart. In fact, the invisible zombie was the last one, dragged forward by the rope, leaving a trail of black liquid on the ground. They walked for a while, and suddenly, Wang Qiushu and he stopped at the same time and turned around. Because they felt the breath of the level 2 zombie, but it was not aimed at them. Qiuzilan didn't feel so keenly, but she heard no footsteps behind her, so she also stopped. Then Qiuzilan also turned around. Not far behind them, they saw a zombie dog following. Although it still looked like a dog, its red eyes clearly showed that it had become a zombie. The hair of the zombie dog was tangled, and it was dirty, and covered with all kinds of dust. The color of its hair was almost invisible, and it was huge, comparable to 2 adult golden retrievers. It was not known whether its original body was a large dog, or whether it had changed after it became a zombie. At this time, it was licking the black liquid on the ground while staring at the invisible zombie. The invisible zombie obviously knew that he was being targeted, so he emitted a breath to intimidate the zombie dog. The invisible dog looked at the invisible zombie, then looked at the others, as if thinking about who to deal with first. Qiuzilan quickly protected Qiuzilan behind him, holding the soul-breaking sword firmly in his hand, and asked, "What should we do now?" Wang Qiushu stood in the front, swinging the hammer of the earth, and answered without turning his head, "It's cold." He sighed. "I hate large dogs, and I hate stray dogs even more. I also hate zombies, not to mention these 3 appearing at the same time. You'd better be careful later. Its size is almost the same as that of a little tiger. It may not be easy to deal with." Wang Qiushu, who had been a little relaxed, suddenly became alert and nodded. Chapter 171 I Slide. Qiuzilan looked at the 2 people who didn't move and asked, "Don't you need to transform? You are just ordinary people now." Wang Qiushu waved his hand. "This zombie dog is just a level 1 zombie. There is no need to transform. Otherwise, it would have attacked the invisible zombie or us long ago, instead of following behind." Qiuzilan breathed a sigh of relief, but still tightly protected Qiuzilan behind him. The zombie dog made a decision at this time, and ran directly towards the invisible zombie. Wang Qiushu was a little surprised. "We look easier to deal with, why doesn't it kill us first?" He nodded. "Maybe it was trained before, so it retains the subconscious that it can't attack people, or it is afraid of people. But we still have to be careful and guard against it making a feint to the east and attacking in the west." Wang Qiushu and Qiuzilan clenched their weapons when they heard the words. As long as the zombie dog dared to come over, it would be in trouble. It must be said that, although the zombie dog is huge, it runs not slow at all. Coupled with the terrifying size, it really gives people a huge sense of oppression. The one who felt the most deeply was naturally the invisible zombie. His hands and feet were broken, and he couldn't run away. He could only watch the zombie dog running towards him. That feeling was like watching the god of death approaching him step by step. Therefore, the invisible zombie did not sit and wait for death, but directly began to hide himself, trying to hide himself. Several people watched the invisible zombie disappear little by little, and finally disappeared completely, and they were stunned for a while. The zombie dog also stopped, and then kept sniffing the ground with its nose, and soon ran towards the place where the invisible zombie was. He secretly remembered this point. Invisibility is just hiding the body, but if you encounter an opponent with a developed sense of smell, invisibility will not work. At this time, Wang Qiushu also rushed out. Naturally, she would not watch the zombie dog kill the invisible zombie. Once the zombie dog kills the invisible zombie, it will be promoted to level 2, and it will be difficult to deal with it at that time. Besides, the ability of the invisible zombie is so special that after being killed, unless you eat the corpse, you will not be able to obtain his ability. The zombie dog looked at Wang Qiushu rushing over and stopped directly. There was no fear in his eyes, but his body was half lying, making a posture ready to pounce forward. Wang Qiuyushu also stopped, waiting for the zombie dog to pounce on it, and then hit it with a hammer. After all, she has not transformed yet, and she is definitely not as fast as the zombie dog. The next second, the zombie dog really moved and rushed straight towards Wang Qiuyushu. Wang Qiuyushu twisted her waist and swung the hammer of the earth, just waiting for the zombie dog to come to her. She had a dark skirt on her body, so even if she was pounced on, she would be fine. This was her confidence. However, when the zombie dog was about to rush in front of Wang Qiuyushu, it turned directly and rushed towards Qiuyuzilan. The hammer that Wang Qiuyushu swung out missed directly. Seeing the zombie dog turn around, she quickly rushed over. Qiuyuzilan looked at the huge zombie dog and felt a little nervous, with her palms sweating slightly. However, she still held the soul-breaking knife firmly and protected Qiuyuzilan behind her. If the zombie dog had a target to attack, it would definitely choose Qiuyuzilan. After all, she had no weapon in her hand and was the smallest. Therefore, Qiuyuzilan was under a lot of pressure at this time. She hoped that she would be attacked. At least she had the martial arts clothes on her body to block it, but Zillion had nothing on her body. Once attacked, it would be dangerous. Wang Qiuyushu was also shocked at this time and ran faster. Qiuyuzilan held Qiuyuzilan's clothes tightly and did not dare to stick her head out to look, for fear that she would see a dog head with red eyes appear in front of her. However, the zombie dog turned again when it was about to rush to Qiuyuzilan. Qiuyuzilan looked at the soul-breaking knife in her hand and was relieved. Fortunately, it scared the zombie dog away. However, her heart tightened again in the next second. Wang Qiuyushu and her two sisters who were present were not attacked by the zombie dogs. Doesn't that mean that the zombie dog's target was him from the beginning? Qiuyuzilan hurriedly looked at him and wanted to go over to help, but she was afraid that if she left, the zombie dogs would turn back to deal with Zillion. By then, she would not be able to come back in time to rescue. So she stayed where she was and shouted to him, "Run." Wang Qiuyushu's face was also angry at this time. She didn't expect that she was fooled by a beast. She also shouted, "Run." However, to the surprise of them and the zombie dog, he stood there without moving, as if he was scared silly. At this time, Qiuyuzilan couldn't help it and simply rushed to him with Zillion in one hand. She knew that he was not wearing any protective gear. Once he was pounced on, even if he didn't die, he would be infected with the zombie virus, and then he would have the same fate as her grandfather. When it was about to rush in front of him, the zombie dog jumped up and pounced on him, opening its mouth, aiming at his throat. It seems that, even after becoming a zombie, some hunting instincts still exist. At this time, he suddenly smiled. "I'm really underestimated." He tilted his body and slid directly under the zombie dog. At the same time, a very thin and narrow knife appeared in his hand, but the cold light on the blade showed that the knife was definitely not easy to mess with. The next second, the blade suddenly became twice as long, passing directly under the belly of the zombie dog and deep into its belly. Then, the two separated. The zombie dog fell to the ground and turned to look at him. He stabilized his body, stood up, and flicked his wrist, and the black liquid sticking to the blade fell directly to the ground. The zombie dog suddenly wooed twice, and when he looked down, he saw that the internal organs in his stomach fell out and dragged on the ground. At this time, Wang Qiuyushu and Qiuyuzilan both rushed to his side. Wang Qiuyushu patted his chest and said, "You scared me to death just now." Qiuyuzilan didn't say anything, but she looked up to him. After all, in the situation just now, it was rare to be able to perform such an extreme operation. Not only does it require courage, but also a corresponding reaction speed, which is definitely not something that ordinary people can do. A cold light flashed in his hand, and the sword of death disappeared directly. Then he looked at Wang Qiuyushu. "The next step is up to you." Wang Qiuyushu looked at Qiuyuzilan. "Protect them." After that, he rushed out with the hammer of the earth. The injured zombie dog moved much slower, and was hammered to death by Wang Qiuyushu in a short while. Chapter 172 Survivors in the Supermarket. He skillfully took out the juicer and started to squeeze the juice. After Qiuyuzilan comforted Qiuyuzilan, she walked to his side and said, "Your knife is very special." He nodded, "Yeah." Qiuyuzilan didn't know what to say for a moment. Wan Qiushu came over and said, when are you going to get some protective gear? How dangerous will it be if you encounter the situation just now? You almost scared me to death. He shook his head and said, it wasn't very dangerous just now. I was always on guard. Besides, if it wasn't like this, how could I have lured it into the trap? Don't worry about the protective gear, let's talk about it later. Wan Qiushu opened his mouth and said no more. Qiuzilan asked again, in fact, if you had just let her turn into a zombie, wouldn't it have been easy to deal with it? Why take such a big risk? If you were injured, you would probably turn into a zombie. He shook his head. A transformation needle costs 20 experience points, and killing a level 1 zombie only gives 10 experience points. Not only will you not make any money, but you will lose money. Moreover, facts have proved that level 1 zombies are not our opponents at all. Wan Qiushu nodded repeatedly. Qiuzilan thought for a while. I don't know what you mean by those experience points. I just want to ask, if I want to get a set of protective gear for my sister, what price do I have to pay? After what happened just now, she felt that she had to get a set of protective gear for her sister no matter what. He put his hand on his chin and chuckled twice. Qiuzilan looked at his strange eyes and couldn't help but take 2 steps back. Wan Qiushu slapped him. What's that expression on your face? What are you thinking about? He quickly said seriously, I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just thinking about what price I should make her pay. Wan Qiushu said unhappily, have you thought about it? He shook his head. No, I have everything now, and the two of them have nothing, so. Qiuzilan remembered what he had just said about experience, so she quickly said, I can help you kill zombies. Now I guess I can only kill ordinary zombies. Level 1 zombies should not be a problem in the future. He waved his hand. That's meaningless. Let her deal with ordinary zombies and level 1 zombies. She can kill one with one hammer. Isn't it better than you risking your life to kill them for a long time? Qiuzilan continued, but didn't you say that killing zombies has experience points? Although I can't kill high level zombies, I can kill those ordinary zombies. Isn't it okay to accumulate a little bit? He said directly, unless you become my assistant, no matter how many zombies you kill, I won't get any experience points. By the way, if you want to upgrade your equipment, you need experience points. After that, he went to clean up the juicer and the extracted zombie virus. Wan Qiushu patted Qiuzilan on the shoulder. You should think about this matter carefully. Once you start, you can't turn back. Qiuzilan looked uncertain when she heard this, and I don't know what she was thinking. After packing up, they continued on the road, and Wan Qiushu was still responsible for the alert at the end. The rest of the journey was much safer, and they didn't encounter zombie dogs or the like. It makes sense. If there were zombie dogs everywhere, there wouldn't be so many zombies. At the same level, it should be difficult for zombies to beat zombie dogs, especially when the level is lower. After returning, they started moving things directly. As for the invisible zombie, he hung it on the seafood restaurant next to it. First, the seafood restaurant is not far from the building, and the stench of the zombies will not come over. Second, although the invisible zombie is already disabled, it is still a level 2 zombie after all, and it can scare away many zombies with its breath. After moving, they set out again, and arrived at the shopping mall smoothly. Wan Qiushu and the other two were ready to move things in with joy. They just took a small part of the clothes, and there were still many nice clothes that they hadn't taken. At this time, his face became solemn. Don't go in yet, something is wrong. Wan Qiushu and the others stopped immediately and looked around vigilantly. What's wrong? Are there zombies? He looked at the supermarket. I just tied a red rope the size of a hair on it, and now the red rope is broken, so someone must have been here. This is also the reason why he didn't turn on the scanner the first time. People are much easier to deal with than zombies. If it was a zombie, he would have turned on the scan long ago, so as to avoid invisible zombies hiding. But for people, it's different. They are in the light, and those people are in the dark. And they don't know if those people have guns in their hands. If they have guns, it's meaningless to turn on the scan. It's better to wait and see. Wan Qiushu and Qiuzilan naturally understood the meaning of it, and directly protected the two of them in the middle. At least they have protective gear on them, which can reduce some damage. He was ready to exchange the transformation needle at any time. Once the other party really made a move, he could immediately inject Wang Qiushu. However, when he didn't know who the other party was, he didn't want to expose the fact that Wang Qiushu could transform into a zombie. Once it was exposed, no matter whether the other party was a good person or a bad person, he would have to die. 2 minutes later, a large number of people came out of those stores. These people were dirty and had not taken a shower for a long time. They were all wearing thick clothes, but many of them were already tattered, obviously cut by zombies. Their faces were thin and their lips were dry, and it was obvious that they had not had a good life. Moreover, among these people, there were adults, children, and the elderly, and both men and women. They all held a broken kitchen knife in their hands and looked at Wang Qiushu and the others fiercely. The leader was a tall and strong man. His spirit seemed to be the best among the group. His eyes were bright, and he held a thick-backed kitchen knife in his hand. The blade had turned black, and it was obvious that he had killed many zombies. He and Wang Qiushu heaved a sigh of relief when they saw that none of the people who came out had guns in their hands. Qiushu thought of her past self when she also foolishly went out to kill zombies and find food for others. The difference was that at that time, she was the only one fighting for her life. And these people in front of her, obviously, regardless of gender, age or status, were acting together. So, she asked in a low voice, "What should we do now? Should we take action?" In her heart, she didn't want to attack her own kind, but the initiative was not in her hands now. Besides, with her strength, she couldn't stop Wang Qiushu and the others from taking action. Wang Qiushu looked directly at him, waving the hammer of the earth in his hand, waiting for his order. He looked at the group of people opposite and smiled. "Don't worry, let's see what they want to do first." Chapter 173 Strength Speaks. Hearing this, they both stood in front, taking a defensive posture. The tall and strong man looked at their appearance, stepped forward, and said with a smile, "You are here to search for supplies too, right? It doesn't matter, there are a lot of things in here, we can share them equally." A child behind him said indignantly, "We obviously discovered this place first, and we have more people than them, why should we share it equally with them?" The tall and strong man turned around and cursed, "Shut up." Although the people opposite were only 3 adults and a child, but looking at their clothes and spirit, it was obvious that they had lived a much better life than them. Moreover, this was the first time he saw someone dare to come out wearing only one piece of clothing. They were wearing such thick clothes, but they couldn't stop the claws of the zombies. These people dressed like this, but they could survive until now. Obviously they were very strong. What he feared most was the weapons in the hands of the 2 women. Whether it was the huge hammer or the knife with a shining blade, they were obviously not easy to mess with. But the 2 women were led by the man, so the man was even more complicated. With the quality of their current group, he didn't want to anger the people on the opposite side, otherwise he might have to die here. Wang Qiushu snorted coldly, "I think he is right. This is obviously our place. These things are our spoils of war. Why should we share them with you?" As soon as these words came out, those people immediately exploded. They stepped forward and looked at them with unfriendly eyes, as if they were ready to fight at any time. They had finally found this place, and there was so much food in it. If they didn't have these foods, they would die sooner or later, so they might as well give it a try. The tall and strong man also understood this, so he didn't stop these people. Wang Qiushu sneered. The oppression these people gave her was not as strong as that of a level 1 zombie. Then, she swung the hammer of the earth and smashed it on the ground. With a loud bang, the bricks on the ground shattered directly, and the part hit by the hammer was smashed into pieces. Those people couldn't help swallowing their saliva, and their hands holding the knives trembled slightly. Wang Qiushu looked up at those people. "Do you still have any objections? If you still have any objections, I don't mind fighting with you. Don't worry, I will give you a quick death." The tall and strong man said quickly, "In fact, everyone is just trying to survive. There is no need to fight to the death, right?" Wang Qiushu shook his head. "You use the wrong idiom. It's you who will die, and we will live. I can deal with all of you by myself." As soon as these words came out, those people were immediately dissatisfied and looked ready to rush up at any time. The tall and strong man angrily scolded those people and then looked at Wang Qiushu. "You are right. So what do you want to do now? Wan Kyushu turned around and looked at him. He thought for a moment. You move yours, and we move ours. However, you can only move with your hands, not with other tools, and move as much as you can. If we find you using a car or other vehicles, don't blame us for being rude. The tall and strong man quickly replied, okay, then it's settled. He breathed a sigh of relief. He thought he would not get anything, but he didn't expect these people to be so generous. Although there are restrictions, it's good to get some food. The child spoke again. It's obvious that we found this place first. Why should we listen to your distribution method? Besides, you can use the car. Why can't we? He smiled and said, I see that you have never been beaten. This is not a society ruled by law. Whoever has the bigger fist will be obeyed. If you are not convinced, then fight with her. If you win, everything here belongs to you. Wan Kyushu looked directly at the child. When he heard it, the child found that Wan Kyushu was staring at him and quickly took 2 steps back. He continued, besides, before you came, we had cleared out all the zombies here. Otherwise, how could you go in and move things so easily? I'm afraid they would have become corpses long ago. The tall and strong man was shocked. He didn't expect that those scary zombies were actually cleared out by these people. They had long coveted this shopping mall, but there were too many zombies here, and there were some scary zombies in it, so they never dared to go in. Until today, they really had nothing to eat, so they thought about coming here to fight. Anyway, they would starve to death sooner or later without anything to eat. As a result, they found that all the zombies here disappeared, so they didn't think much and just started moving things. The child was not convinced. Since you said that all the zombies were killed, what about the corpses? Maybe you also found that the zombies here disappeared, so you came here to pick up the leaks. A dangerous light flashed in his eyes. It seems that some people just need to be beaten. The child was stared at by something scary when he looked at him. He stepped back several steps in a row and finally couldn't stand up and sat on the ground. His body felt cold and he broke out in a cold sweat. The tall and strong man said quickly, he is also starving, so he is talking nonsense. You are a big man, don't bother with him, a child. He nodded and then said, you go and move your things. I will call you after I move them. Wan Kyushu nodded and walked over with the 2 sisters Kyuuzalin. As for his safety, she was not worried at all. He had a knife of death and life, which could kill even level 1 zombies, let alone these ordinary people. Those people looked at them approaching and unconsciously made way for them. He shook his head, walked into a store next door, and started moving. Since those people were short of food, let them move first. Anyway, there was still a lot of food in the building, and with Wan Kyushu's current strength, he could walk sideways in most places, so it was easy to find some food. The group of people looked at each other and quickly moved things, but they all chose food and drinks and just carried a lot of them and started to walk out. The tall and strong man even warned them directly that they could only use their hands and not use shopping carts or anything like that. Otherwise, he would not protect them if something went wrong. When he came out with a bunch of things, he found that the tall and strong man was standing next to the cart, and he didn't know where he put the knife in his hand. So he asked, is there anything wrong? The tall and strong man waved his hand. Nothing. I just want to say thank you. He sneered and looked at the tall and strong man. This man is quite interesting. Chapter 174 Survivor Base. He smiled and said, I'm glad you don't hate me. You came to say thank you. Now is the end of the world. There is no need to do those hypocritical things. The tall and strong man shook his head. No, I'm sincerely thanking you. With your strength, there is no need to discuss with us, let alone share these things with us. Even the cruel ones can kill us all. So, I want to thank you. He looked at the tall and strong man. Then have you ever thought that I didn't do it because I didn't want to kill anyone? Besides, we don't live nearby, so when we leave, you can still move secretly. It's better to let you move directly. The tall and strong man was stunned for a moment and smiled. No matter what the reason is, I still have to thank you. He nodded. It's up to you. Thank you. If there is nothing else, I will continue to move things. Otherwise, they will be moved away by your people. The tall and strong man nodded. Then you move first, and we'll talk about it after you're done. He nodded and continued to move. The tall and strong man stayed next to the cart and didn't move anything. When he came out again, he found that the tall and strong man was beating the child. You ran twice, while others ran once. Are you taking advantage of others? The child just held his head and didn't answer. He shook his head. Anyway, these were their internal affairs and none of his business. He turned around and prepared to continue moving. At this time, the tall and strong man pointed at him and said, "Look at them. They are just some useful things. They don't fight with you. Why are you so greedy?" He stopped and turned to look at the tall and strong man. How did this have anything to do with him? The child was not convinced and said, "My mother didn't come. I just helped her get a portion." The tall and strong man couldn't do it anymore. Then he sighed, "Don't worry about your mother's portion. We will give it to her. You can't break the rules. Then not only will you be in trouble, but it may also implicate everyone." The child stopped talking, but looked at Li Wending with more hatred. He walked over. "What's going on?" The tall and strong man explained, "We usually distribute according to work. If you don't work, you won't get anything to eat. His mother is sick and didn't come, so he wanted to take more, so that he can get more when the time comes." He nodded and looked at the child. The child was obviously very afraid of him and took several steps back, but his hostile eyes did not change. He thought for a while and threw out a pill. "Give this to your mother and she will get better." The child looked at the pills on the ground and didn't pick them up. Wang Qiushu and the others happened to come out with large and small bags. No need to ask, they must be clothes and the like. They put those things directly on the cart and prepared to go back to move them. Seeing this, he was too lazy to move anymore, so he took away their clothes first. Qiushu naturally saw the scene just now, glanced at him, and then looked at the child. "I have taken that medicine, and the effect is quite good." The child hesitated for a while, picked up the pills and left directly. The tall and strong man walked up to him. "This life is really unbearable." He didn't say anything. The tall and strong man said again, "My name is Gao Xianxi." He replied, "Li Wending." The tall and strong man talked to himself. "I'm now the leader of this group of people. To be more precise, I'm just a leader they elected. In fact, I don't have much power. Usually, we all stick together to survive. At the beginning, our number was much larger than it is now. But those zombies are not easy to deal with. So, after a long time, only we are left. Those young and strong people always rushed to the front, so almost all died, leaving only the old, weak and disabled like us." He sighed. "They are all great." Gao Xianxi nodded. "If I hadn't been lucky enough to meet you today, I guess we wouldn't have been able to hold on for much longer." He didn't say anything. In fact, this group of people was just a microcosm of countless survivors. In other places, there are still countless people struggling to survive. And with his current ability, he can support a few people, but if he wants to support a group of people, he has to keep going out to find food. If there were more people, it would be difficult to maintain, even if we search day and night. Gao Xianxi continued, "I heard that there is a survivor base in the city center. Next, we plan to move there to see if we can get a glimmer of hope." He frowned. "The city center? Isn't the city center the most densely populated place? There should be the most zombies, right?" Gao Xianxi shook his head. "I don't know what the situation is, but I heard that there is such a place. It seems that there is a refuge facility there. After the doomsday, the government conducted research on zombies in it. It was only recently opened to the public to receive survivors." He nodded. "Thank you for the information you provided. If I have the opportunity in the future, I will go and see it." Gao Xianxi smiled. "With your strength, you can definitely do it, but we don't know if there will be such an opportunity again." He thought for a while. "Let your people bring all the knives." Gao Xianxi was stunned for a moment and asked, "Is there anything?" He did not answer. Gao Xianxi thought for a while and directly asked those people to bring the knives. Those people were also stunned when they heard this request. In this doomsday, handing over the knife is equivalent to handing over your life. Without a knife, there is basically no need to think about surviving. Although most of their knives have been bent, at least they can still chop zombies. Gao Xianxi shouted again, and those people handed over their knives reluctantly. Soon, there were many knives in front of him. He smiled and said, hand over the knives like this. Aren't you afraid that I will kill you all? Gao Xianzi shook his head. With your strength, even if we hold these broken knives, we are not your opponent. He smiled. Then you really overestimate me. I don't have such great ability. I'm just a gigolo. Gao Xianzi did not say anything. He asked in his mind, system, can I upgrade it in a targeted way? How much does it cost? System, that depends on how you want to direct it. He asked, I want to add the 2 features of sharpness and self-repair to these knives. How many experience points do I need? The system was silent for a while. Since these 2 features are relatively simple, and the host is doing a good deed, there will be no extra charge. It will be 20 experience points per knife as usual. He looked at his experience points. The remaining experience points, before plus the zombies killed today, a total of 1286 experience points. He gritted his teeth, and reached out to brush the knives in front of him. Chapter 175, Mass Upgrade of Knives. All the knives looked brand new. The original flaws were no longer visible, and the blades looked much sharper than before. The onlookers were stunned, and some even dropped the food in their hands. They looked at the brand new knives with longing in their eyes, but they didn't dare to take them. He waved his hand. Take your knives back. Those people still didn't move, but all looked at Gao Xianzi. Gao Xianzi waved his hand. Those people happily went forward to take the knives, and didn't even care about the food in their hands, but looked at the new knives. He continued, these knives are much sharper than before, and it's much easier to chop zombies. Moreover, they can self-repair. If the blade is bent, it can be restored to full shape after a while. Gao Xianzi clasped his fists and said, thank you for your kindness. We have nothing to repay you now. If there is a chance in the future, we will definitely make up for it. He waved his hand and said, we'll talk about it later. In this end of the world, you never know when you will die. At this time, the child just now came back hurriedly with a middle-aged woman. Mom, he saved you. The middle-aged woman knelt down in front of him and asked the child to kneel down as well. Then she kowtowed and said, thank you, benefactor. If it weren't for your medicine, I would definitely not survive. Those people looked at this scene and didn't know what happened. It was the first time he encountered such a thing, and he didn't know what to say for a while. Finally, he said directly, give me your knives. The middle-aged woman was stunned for a moment. Knives? The child had already seen the shining knives in the hands of others, and guessed that he might have made them, so he handed over the 2 knives directly. He stretched out his hand and brushed them, deducting another 40 experience points, and the 2 knives were successfully upgraded and changed their appearance. The middle-aged woman kowtowed again. Got. The others looked at each other, and knelt down and kowtowed. In this chaotic world, having a good knife is equivalent to having an extra life. Just at this time, Wang Qiushu and the others came over. He hurriedly said to Gao Xianzi, we should leave, see you later, and leave the rest of these things to you. Before Gao Xianzi had time to stop them, he hurriedly pulled Wang Qiushu and the others away. Walking on the road, Qiu Zilan kept looking at him with strange eyes. Wang Qiushu asked, so many things, don't we want them anymore? He shook his head, no, there are so many of them, leave them to them. Besides, we can't move much in one trip, and it will be easy to expose our address over time, which will cause unnecessary trouble. Wang Qiushu replied, well, fortunately we picked a lot of nice clothes in advance, and the rest doesn't matter. By the way, I also picked some for you. Try them on when you go back to see if they look good. He nodded. Qiu Zilan suddenly asked, did you help them upgrade those knives? Because she saw that those people were holding brand new knives, which were completely different from the previous ones. He nodded. Yeah. Is there any problem? Qiu Zilan frowned. I just don't understand why you are so nice to these people. He replied, because they are trying hard to stay alive, so I help them by the way. However, whether they can survive depends on their luck. After all, the knife has only become sharper and more durable. Wang Qiushu looked at him. You have upgraded so many knives, so how much experience points do you have left? He covered his chest when he heard it. My heart hurts so much when I say it. Today, plus the ones I killed before, I have used up all the experience points. Only 46 points are left, and I have run out of my power pills for today. QI Zealand continued to ask, so, you obviously have enough experience points. You would rather upgrade their knives, but you are reluctant to get yourself a set of protective gear. He nodded. That's right. Because I didn't think it was necessary, so I didn't upgrade it. The same applies to Zillion. Therefore, if you really want to get a set for Zillion, then earn the experience points yourself. QI Zealand fell silent immediately. Wan Qiushu said quickly, he is not targeting you, nor does he want to force you to become a zombie. It's just experience points, isn't it? I'm already level 3 now, and I can get it by killing a few more level 3 zombies. It's not a big deal. He nodded in agreement. Then I'll leave it to you. Wan Qiushu looked at him. Damn capitalists, they should hang you and that invisible zombie together. You squandered the experience points I worked so hard to earn and upgraded other people's equipment. He responded, you've seen how dilapidated their equipment is. I'm just providing them with a little help. If everyone in the world died, it would be so boring. If only a few of us were left. Wan Qiushu thought for a while and said, that's right. He continued, besides, I'm not giving it to you for free. It can be considered a reward. Because Gao Xianzi told me that there is a survivor base in the city center, and official people are studying zombies in it. It was only recently open to the public. Wan Qiushu asked, then shall we head to the city center next? He nodded, then looked at QI Zealand. If the survivor base is indeed safe, you two sisters can stay there, and it can be regarded as fulfilling my promise to your grandfather. QI Zealand looked at him. He explained, because then the two of us will leave this city and return to my hometown. Or wherever your hometown is, I can also send you back. QI Zealand replied coldly, no need. Then she walked forward quickly. He looked at Wan Qiushu. What kind of attitude is this? Did I say something wrong? Anyway, she doesn't agree with my approach. Wouldn't it be better to part ways as soon as possible? Wan Qiushu looked at him, shook her head, and quickly chased after him. What he said just now was just a suggestion. You don't have to pay attention to him. If you don't want to leave, you can stay. It just so happens that we have company. Anyway, he has to listen to me, and he doesn't have the final say. QI Zealand looked at Wan Qiushu. Am I very annoying? That's why he wants me to leave. Wan Qiushu was stunned for a moment. Of course not. In fact, it's like this. He thought you don't like him and have some opinions about him, so he proposed to break up early. So, the fundamental problem is not with you, but with him. QI Zealand was a little overwhelmed. Is that so? But I don't have any opinion about him. I just want to get a set of protective gear for Zillion. Wan Qiushu nodded repeatedly. Absolutely. It's all just a misunderstanding. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.